The heart monitor screamed its final note, a piercing flatline that turned every head in Trauma Bay 3. But what happened next wasn't protocol. It was chaos. Dr. Marcus Holloway, Westbridge Medical's star surgeon, stood frozen, hands hovering uselessly above the patient's chest, his face drained white. The resident beside him fumbled with the defibrillator paddles, nearly dropping them. And in that suspended moment of professional paralysis, a woman in navy scrubs, someone no one important ever noticed, shoved past them both. "Move," Evelyn Carter said. Not loud, not polite. She didn't wait for permission. Her hands hit the patient's sternum with calculated force. "Bag him, now. Someone get me EPI, 1 milligram, and prep for intubation before his brain starts dying." Her voice cut through the panic like a scalpel through skin. Dr. Holloway blinked. "You can't just watch me." 20 seconds later, the monitor beeped. Once, twice. A rhythm returned. And every person in that room realized they'd just watched a nobody nurse do what their best doctor couldn't. Before we go further, if you're watching this, I need you to do something. Stay with me until the end of this story. See how far the truth travels. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far Evelyn's story has reached. And if you believe people like her deserve to be seen, hit that like button. Because what happens next? It'll make you question everything you thought you knew about who really holds power when lives are on the line. Evelyn Carter had been invisible for exactly 7 years. Not literally. She showed up for every shift at Westbridge Medical Center, clocked in at 6:45 a.m. sharp, worked the ER floor until her feet ached and her back screamed. She knew every supply closet by heart, could read a patient's vitals before the monitors updated, and had pulled more people back from the edge than she bothered counting. But to the people who mattered, the doctors, the administrators, the ones whose names went on the plaques in the lobby, she was furniture, useful furniture, the kind you didn't thank, just expected to be there. "Carter, we need more IV bags in Bay 2. "Carter, the family in 4 is asking questions. Handle it." "Carter, someone spilled coffee in the break room." "But never Evelyn. Never thank you." Just Carter. Like a last name was all she deserved. She didn't complain, didn't push back. She'd learned a long time ago that the people who talked the loudest usually had the least to say. So she kept her head down, did her job, and went home to a quiet apartment where nobody asked her for anything. It was safer that way. The trouble started on a Tuesday. Westbridge's ER had a reputation for handling the worst trauma cases in the city: gunshot wounds, car wrecks, overdoses, the kind of emergencies that made med students reconsider their career choices. But tonight was different. Tonight, the chaos had a name: Senator David Klein. The man had been rushed in after a campaign event went sideways. Possible cardiac episode, possible poisoning. The details were still murky. What wasn't murky was the circus that followed. News vans stacked up outside. Security detail clogged the hallways. And every senior doctor in the building suddenly appeared, eager to be the hero who saved a politician's life. Evelyn stayed in the corner of Trauma Bay 3, prepping supplies. She'd seen this dance before. Egos got loud when cameras were involved. Dr. Marcus Holloway swept in first, his white coat crisp enough to cut glass. He was young for a head surgeon, 42, charming smile, the kind of confidence that made hospital donors write big checks. He didn't look at Evelyn. He never did. "All right, people, let's show them how Westbridge operates," Holloway announced, snapping on gloves. "Senator Klein is stable for now, but we're not taking chances. I want a full cardiac workup, talk screen, and let's get imaging rolling. This man walks out of here in perfect health, understood?" A chorus of "yes, doctor" rippled through the room. Evelyn watched the monitors. The senator's vitals were holding, but something felt off. His heart rate was climbing, not spiking, just creeping upward in a way that made her instincts itch. She'd seen this pattern before, somewhere, a long time ago. "Dr. Holloway," she said quietly, "his rhythm's changing." Holloway didn't turn around. "I can see the monitors, Carter. It's not just the rate. Look at the waveform. I said I can see it." He smiled at the resident beside him, a younger guy named Torres who worshipped Holloway like a patron saint. Let's get that talk screen moving, probably just residual stress from the event. Evelyn bit her tongue. She'd learned that lesson, too. Doctors didn't like being corrected, especially not by nurses, especially not by women who didn't have the degrees hanging on the wall. But the itch didn't go away. 10 minutes later, Senator Klein started seizing. It happened fast. 1 second he was stable. The next his body arched off the gurney, limbs jerking, eyes rolling back. Alarms shrieked. The resident froze. Holloway shouted something about benzos, but his hands hesitated, hovering uselessly over the medication cart. Evelyn moved. She didn't think, didn't wait for orders. Her body remembered what her brain had tried to forget, the muscle memory of high-stakes trauma, the kind where hesitation meant death. She grabbed the airway kit, positioned herself at the head of the bed, and tilted the senator's chin back. "Someone get me lorazepam, 2 milligrams IV, now!" Her voice carried over the chaos, sharp and clear. A nurse she didn't know handed her the syringe. Evelyn pushed it into the IV line, smooth and fast. The seizing slowed, stopped. The senator's breathing was ragged but present. Holloway blinked at her like she'd materialized out of thin air. "What the hell do you think you're—" The monitor flatlined. No warning, no gradual decline, just a single, endless tone that turned the room into a frozen tableau. Holloway's face went white. "Start compressions. Someone get the crash cart." But he didn't move. His hands stayed locked at his sides, his mouth open, his eyes wide with the kind of fear that only came when you realized you were in over your head. Evelyn shoved past him. Her palms hit the senator's chest, fingers laced, elbows locked. She started compressions, hard, fast, counting in her head the way she'd been trained. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Repeat. Don't stop. Don't think. Just move. "Bag him!" She barked at Torres, who fumbled with the ambu bag like he'd never seen one before. "Now, Torres, or his brain's gone in 3 minutes!" Torres snapped out of it, pressed the mask over Klein's face, squeezed. Air pushed into lungs. Evelyn kept pumping. "Someone charged the defib to 200, she said, not looking up. "And get me EPI 1 milligram, stat." A nurse moved. Another followed. The room started obeying her without question, like she'd flipped a switch they didn't know existed. Holloway found his voice. "You can't just take over." "I just did." Evelyn didn't stop compressions. "You gonna help or get in my way?" His mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. The defibrillator whined, charged. Evelyn pulled back, let the paddles touch skin. "Clear!" The senator's body jerked. The monitor stayed flat. Again, 300 this time. Another shock, another jerk, still nothing. Evelyn's mind ran through possibilities at light speed. Cardiac arrest, yes, but triggered by what? The seizing wasn't epileptic. The talk screen wasn't back yet. The waveform before the crash had been irregular. Almost. Poison. Not a heart attack, not stress. Something in his system shutting him down from the inside. "Stop the talk screen," she said. "Run a full panel for organophosphates. He's been poisoned." Holloway stared. That's absurd. You can't just do it or he dies." Evelyn snapped. She started compressions again, ignoring the burn in her shoulders. "And someone get me atropine, now." A nurse grabbed the vial, hands shaking. Evelyn pushed the dose into the IV line, then went back to compressions. Counting, breathing, waiting. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The monitor beeped. Once. Twice. A rhythm crawled back across the screen. Weak, irregular, but alive. Evelyn kept going, didn't trust it yet. "Keep bagging him. Watch that rhythm. If it drops again, we go another round." But it held. The senator's chest rose and fell on its own. Color crept back into his face. The room exhaled as one. Evelyn finally stepped back, her hands aching, her scrubs damp with sweat. She looked at the monitor, then at Holloway. The surgeon's face was a mix of shock and something else, something ugly. "You had no authority to do that," he said quietly. Evelyn met his eyes. "You had no ability." The room went dead silent. Holloway's jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists. "Security," he said, voice low and sharp. "Remove her from this floor, immediately." Evelyn didn't move. "You're joking." You overstepped, violated protocol, endangered a patient by administering medication without physician approval. Holloway's voice rose, gaining confidence as he spun the narrative. That's grounds for suspension at minimum, possibly termination. Two security guards appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. Evelyn felt the eyes on her, some sympathetic, some scared, some just relieved it wasn't them. She'd seen this before, too. The system protected its own, and she wasn't one of them. Dr. Holloway, Torres said carefully, she saved his life. She interfered with the code, Holloway snapped. That's not her job. Evelyn almost laughed. Almost. But the heat rising in her chest wasn't funny. It was old, familiar. The same anger she'd buried 7 years ago when she walked away from the last place that told her she didn't belong. One of the guards stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." Evelyn looked at the senator, still unconscious but breathing, then at Holloway, who couldn't meet her eyes anymore. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her ID badge, and held it up, not to the guards, but to the room. "Before you escort me out," she said, voice calm, "I need to make one call." Holloway frowned. "You don't get to—" Evelyn turned to the wall-mounted comm panel, pressed a button, and spoke clearly into the microphone. "Unit Echo 7 requesting immediate support. Code Black. Westbridge Medical Center, Trauma Bay 3. The room froze. Torres blinked. "What's Echo 7? Evelyn didn't answer. She just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. Holloway laughed, a short, nervous sound. "What is this, some kind of bluff? You think you can—" The building shook. Not an earthquake, not an explosion, just the deep, rhythmic thrum of heavy vehicles pulling up outside. Fast, precise, unmistakable. Through the ER windows, headlights blazed. Engines rumbled, doors slammed, and then footsteps, lots of them, moving in formation. Evelyn glanced at the clock. 12 seconds. They're getting faster. The guards looked at each other, then at Holloway, who'd gone pale. The ER doors burst open. 6 figures in tactical uniforms entered, moving like a single organism. They weren't hospital security. They weren't local police. The insignia on their shoulders was small, discreet, and carried weight that made everyone in scrubs instinctively step back. The lead officer, a woman in her 40s with a scar cutting through her left eyebrow, scanned the room, then locked eyes with Evelyn. "Ma'am," she said, voice clipped and respectful. "We received your signal." Evelyn nodded. "Senator Klein, poisoning, likely organophosphate exposure. He's stable now, but he'll need a full decontamination protocol and isolation until we confirm the source." The officer didn't question it. She turned to her team. "Lock it down. No one in or out. Get the hazmat unit rolling and notify command." 2 soldiers moved to secure the exits. Another started setting up equipment. It happened in seconds, smooth and coordinated. Holloway finally found his voice. "Wait, who the hell are you people?" The officer glanced at him like he was a fly buzzing near her ear. "Lieutenant Renee Voss, Homeland Security Tactical Medical Response Unit. And you are?" I'm the head surgeon here, and I don't know what authority you think you—" Senator Klein's security detail flagged a potential bioterrorism threat 15 minutes ago. Voss said, cutting him off. "That gives us jurisdiction. Now step back and let us work." Holloway's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Voss turned back to Evelyn. "Run me through what happened." Evelyn did, concise, clinical, no wasted words. Voss listened, nodding, occasionally asking a question. When Evelyn finished, Voss looked at the senator, then back at her. "You ID'd the poison before labs came back?" "Field experience," Evelyn said simply. "How long were you deployed?" 6 years, medic, forward operating bases mostly." Voss's expression shifted, just a fraction, but enough. "Respect. Recognition." "Echo 7, I thought that sounded familiar. You're Carter?" Evelyn didn't answer. Voss almost smiled. "We studied your extractions in training. The Kandahar evac, the bridge hold in Mosul. Hell, half the protocols we use now came from your field reports." She paused. "Why the hell are you working an ER floor?" "Long story." I bet. Voss glanced at Holloway, who looked like he'd swallowed glass. This the guy who tried to kick you out? Evelyn shrugged. He was having a bad day. Voss snorted. Right. She raised her voice, addressing the room. Listen up. Until further notice, this floor is under federal oversight. Anyone interferes with our investigation or Ms. Carter's work, you'll answer to me. Clear? Silence. Then a ripple of nods. Holloway opened his mouth. Voss's stare shut it. The officer turned back to Evelyn. We'll take it from here, but I'm keeping you on as a consult. That all right? Fine. Good. Voss motioned to her team, who began coordinating with the hospital staff, efficiently, respectfully, but with zero room for argument. Evelyn stepped back, letting them work. Her hands were still shaking, just a little. Not from fear. From the adrenaline dump, the old reflexes kicking in after years of lying dormant. She caught Torres staring at her, mouth slightly open. You were military? He asked, voice hushed. Evelyn said. Why didn't you ever say anything? Didn't seem relevant. Torres laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. Not relevant. He gestured vaguely at the organized chaos around them. You called in a federal response team like ordering pizza. Evelyn almost smiled. Pizza takes longer. Across the room, Holloway stood alone, watching his authority evaporate in real time. No one looked at him anymore. No one asked him questions. He'd become what Evelyn had been for 7 years, invisible. One of Voss's team approached Evelyn, holding a tablet. Ma'am, we're seeing traces of VX derivatives in the preliminary scan. Confirms your diagnosis. How'd you know? Waveform pattern, Evelyn said. Saw it once overseas. Guy got exposed during a raid. Same progression. The soldier whistled low. Hell of a catch. Just pattern recognition. Still. He nodded respectfully and went back to his team. Evelyn's radio crackled. Normal hospital frequency. A voice came through, tense and uncertain. Trauma Bay 3, this is administration. We're getting reports of military personnel on site. Can someone explain what's happening? Voss plucked the radio off Evelyn's belt, keyed the mic. This is Lieutenant Voss, Homeland Security. Your facility is currently the site of a federal investigation into a potential assassination attempt on a U.S. Senator, cooperate fully, and this goes smoothly. Interfere and I start arresting people. Your choice. A long pause. Then, understood. Voss handed the radio back. Bureaucrats. They mean well, Evelyn said. So do mosquitoes. Voss checked her watch. We're going to need a detailed statement from you. Everything you observed, timeline, the works. You good to do that now, or you need a minute? Now's fine. All right, Torres, Voss pointed at the resident, who straightened like he'd been called to attention. You stay with the senator. Monitor his vitals. Anything changes, you yell. Got it? Yes, ma'am. Voss led Evelyn out of the trauma bay into a quieter hallway. 2 soldiers flanked the door, keeping watch. Voss pulled out a digital recorder, set it on a supply cart between them. Official record, she said. Start from the top. Evelyn walked her through it. The senator's arrival, the initial presentation, the seizing, the code, her intervention. Voss asked sharp questions, writing notes on her tablet. 15 minutes in, she paused. You gave atropine before the talk screen came back, Voss said. That's a gutsy call. If you were wrong, I wasn't. But if you were, you'd have killed him. If I did nothing, he'd have died anyway. Evelyn met her eyes. I've made that calculation before. Voss studied her. Kandahar. The FOB collapse. You pulled 19 people out of a burning med tent with half the ceiling on top of you. 18, Evelyn corrected quietly. We lost 1. 18's still a miracle. Didn't feel like one. Voss leaned back. Why'd you leave? Evelyn hesitated. Old wounds didn't heal just because you stopped looking at them. Medical discharge. PTSD, officially. Unofficially, I had a disagreement with command about how we were running triage. They didn't like my methods. I didn't like watching people die because of politics. She shrugged. So I left. and ended up here. Seemed quiet. How's that working out? Evelyn almost laughed. Not great. Voss smiled, genuine this time. Look, I don't know what your situation is here, but if you ever want back in, we could use someone like you. Our tactical medical units are always looking for experienced combat medics. Pays better, benefits are solid, and no one's going to call security on you for saving lives. I'll think about it. Do that. Voss clicked off the recorder. All right, we're good for now. Stick around, though. Might need follow-up. Evelyn nodded and headed back toward the trauma bay. But before she got there, a nurse she recognized, Amy, one of the younger ones, intercepted her. Evelyn, Amy said, breathless, you need to see this. She pulled up her phone, showed Evelyn the screen. A news feed, live coverage. Breaking. Senator Klein poisoned in assassination attempt. Saved by quick-thinking hospital staff. Below it, shaky phone footage. Someone had filmed the moment Voss's team arrived. You could see Evelyn in the background, calm and still, while everyone else scrambled. The comments section was blowing up. Who's the nurse? She's a badass. That's not just a nurse. Look how she moves. Military for sure. Anyone ID her yet? Amy looked up at Evelyn, eyes wide. You're about to go viral. Evelyn's stomach sank. Great. People are calling you a hero. I'm not. Try telling them that. Amy pocketed her phone. Administration's freaking out. Holloway's locked in his office, and half the staff is asking where you've been hiding. I haven't been hiding. Yeah, well, they're seeing you now. Evelyn rubbed her temples. This was the opposite of what she wanted. Attention meant questions. Questions meant digging into her past. And her past was a minefield she'd spent 7 years learning to tiptoe around. But before she could spiral, her pager buzzed. A code from the ICU. She looked at Amy. I gotta go. Evelyn? Later. She moved fast, muscle memory taking over. The ICU was 2 floors up. She took the stairs, hit the landing at a jog. When she pushed through the double doors, she found a familiar scene. Doctors surrounding a bed, voices overlapping, monitors screaming. But this time when she walked in, people noticed. The attending physician, Dr. Sarah Lindholm, one of the few Evelyn actually respected, looked up, saw her, and relief flooded her face. Carter, thank God. We've got a post-op bleed, pressure's tanking, and I can't get a line in. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She stepped up to the bed, assessed the patient, young guy, maybe early 20s, fresh out of surgery. His skin was gray, breathing shallow. Move, Evelyn said, shouldering past a resident. She found a vein on the second try, slid the catheter in smooth. Hang 2 units ONEG and push fluids wide open. Where's the bleed? Abdomen, we think, Lindholm said. But imaging's backed up and... Forget imaging. Evelyn pressed her hands against the patient's belly, felt for rigidity, rebound tenderness. There, left lower quadrant. It's here. Probably a nicked vessel from the initial surgery. You need to get him back to the OR now, or he's not making it. Lindholm didn't argue. She turned to her team. Prep for emergency re-exploration. Move! They moved. Evelyn stayed until the patient was stable enough to transport, then stepped back, letting them take over. Lindholm caught her arm as she turned to leave. You just saved him, Lindholm said. You would have figured it out. Not in time. Lindholm's grip tightened. I heard what happened downstairs, with Holloway. News travels fast. He's an idiot. Lindholm lowered her voice. But he's got pull with administration. You need to watch your back. I'll manage. Evelyn, Lindholm hesitated. Why didn't you ever tell anyone about your background? Evelyn pulled her arm free gently. Because it doesn't matter. It does now. Maybe. But Evelyn had learned the hard way that being seen came with costs, and she wasn't sure she was ready to pay them. She left the ICU, headed back downstairs. The ER had quieted some. Voss's team was still there, coordinating with hospital security and local PD. The senator had been moved to a secure isolation unit. The immediate crisis was over, but the fallout was just beginning. Evelyn found an empty break room, collapsed into a chair. Her hands were still shaking. She stared at them, willing them to stop. The door opened. She looked up, expecting Amy or another nurse. It was Lieutenant Voss. Thought I'd find you here, Voss said, pulling up a chair. You good? Fine. Liar. Voss handed her a bottle of water. Drink. Evelyn did. The cold helped. You know Holloway's filing a formal complaint, right? Voss said. Evelyn nodded. Figured. He's claiming you endangered the patient, violated protocol, acted outside your scope of practice, basically throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Will it? Not if I have anything to say about it. Voss crossed her arms. I'm submitting my own report. Federal investigation trumps hospital politics. And my report's going to say you're the only reason Senator Klein's still breathing. That won't make me popular. You saved a senator's life. You're already not popular. Voss leaned forward. Look, I get it. You wanted to stay under the radar, but that ship sailed. You're about to have every news outlet in the country asking who you are. Better they hear the truth from someone who knows what they're talking about. Evelyn closed her eyes. I left that life behind for a reason. What reason? Because I was good at it. The words came out harder than she meant. Too good. And that scared me. Voss was quiet for a moment. Then, being good at saving people isn't something to run from. It is when you start wondering if you're doing it for them or for yourself. That's called being human. Evelyn opened her eyes. What if I mess up? What if next time I'm wrong and someone dies because I was too sure of myself? Then you live with it, like every other medic who's ever worn the uniform. Voss stood. But you don't get to hide just because you're scared of making mistakes. That's not fair to the people who need you. She headed for the door, paused. Offer stands, by the way. You ever want back in? Call me. Then she was gone. Evelyn sat alone in the break room, staring at the wall. Her pager buzzed again. Another code. Another crisis. She stood, legs aching, and walked back into the noise. Because that's what she did. That's all she'd ever done. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop apologizing for being good at it. The night stretched on. More patients, more emergencies, more moments where Evelyn's hands moved faster than her doubt. By 4 a.m., the ER had finally quieted. Voss's team had packed up, taking the senator with them to a secure facility. The news crews outside had thinned. The hospital settled into the eerie calm that came just before dawn. Evelyn found herself back in Trauma Bay 3, cleaning up. Someone had to restock the supplies, reset the equipment. Might as well be her. She was halfway through when she heard footsteps. Dr. Marcus Holloway stood in the doorway, looking like he'd aged a decade in 6 hours. Carter, he said. Evelyn didn't look up. Doctor, He stopped, cleared his throat. I wanted to talk. I'm busy. Please. Something in his voice made her pause. She turned, met his eyes. He looked wrecked. The confidence, the charm, all of it stripped away, leaving something raw underneath. I was wrong, Holloway said quietly. About tonight. About you. I let my ego... He laughed, bitter. I let my ego almost kill a man. Evelyn waited. You saved his life, Holloway continued, and I tried to have you removed for it. That's... He shook his head. There's no excuse. No, Evelyn agreed. There isn't. I'm pulling the complaint, and I'll make sure administration knows what really happened. Will you? Yes. He met her eyes. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Evelyn studied him. She'd heard apologies before. Most of them were just words, designed to make the speaker feel better. But this one might actually mean something. Okay, she said. Holloway blinked. Okay? You made a mistake. You're owning it. That's more than most people do. That's it? You're not going to... What? Yell at you? Report you? Evelyn shook her head. I'm tired, doctor. And I don't have the energy to hold grudges. Holloway looked like he wanted to say more, but instead, he just nodded and left. Evelyn went back to restocking supplies. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten, faint pink bleeding into dark blue. A new day coming whether she was ready or not. Her phone buzzed. A text from Amy. "You're on the morning news. They're calling you the mystery nurse who saved a senator. Also, someone leaked your name. Sorry." Evelyn sighed. So much for staying invisible. But as she stood there in the quiet trauma bay, surrounded by the tools of her trade, she felt something shift. Not big, not dramatic. Just a small crack in the wall she'd built around herself. Maybe Voss was right. Maybe hiding wasn't the answer. Maybe it was time to stop running from who she used to be. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to find out who she could still become. The monitor beside her beeped softly, a steady rhythm. Alive. That's all that mattered. She finished restocking, turned off the lights, and walked out into the brightening hall. Somewhere behind her, the trauma bay waited. Empty now, but ready. It was always ready. And so, Evelyn realized, was she? The first interview request came at 6:47 a.m., before Evelyn had even made it to her car. A reporter from Channel 9 News intercepted her in the parking garage, microphone already extended, cameraman trailing behind like a shadow. The woman had perfect hair and teeth that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. "Ms. Carter, just a few questions about last night." Evelyn kept walking. No comment. "Is it true you're a decorated combat veteran? Our sources say..." "Your sources are wrong." Evelyn unlocked her car, slid inside, and shut the door before the reporter could wedge herself in the gap. Through the window, she could see the woman's mouth moving, still asking questions to empty air. The cameraman filmed anyway. Good footage, probably. The mysterious nurse who wouldn't talk. Evelyn started the engine and drove home through streets that were just starting to wake up. Garbage trucks rumbled past. Early commuters clutched coffee cups like lifelines. The city looked the same as it always did, completely unaware that her entire world had shifted overnight. Her apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a building that had seen better decades. The elevator had been broken for 2 years. She climbed the stairs on autopilot, unlocked 3 separate deadbolts, and stepped into the quiet. 1 bedroom. A kitchen the size of a closet. Furniture she'd bought secondhand. Nothing on the walls except a calendar from 2024 she'd forgotten to replace. It wasn't much, but it was hers. A space where nobody needed her, nobody watched her, nobody expected anything. She dropped her keys on the counter and checked her phone. 43 missed calls, 62 text messages. Her inbox was a disaster. Most were from reporters. Some were from old military contacts she hadn't spoken to in years, people who'd seen her name on the news and decided to reach out. A few were from nurses at Westbridge, asking if she was okay, if she needed anything. One message stood out. Unknown number, sent at 5:13 a.m. "Impressive work last night. We should talk." J. Castellanos, Chief of Staff, Westbridge Medical. Evelyn stared at it. The Chief of Staff didn't text nurses directly. That was 3 levels above her pay grade, the kind of person who only appeared in hospital-wide emails and budget meetings. She deleted it without responding. Her hands were still shaking, delayed adrenaline dump from the night shift. She made coffee, burned her tongue on the first sip, and stood at the window watching the street below. A couple walked past, arguing about something trivial. A dog strained against its leash. Normal people living normal lives. She used to be one of them. Before the deployment, before Kandahar, before she learned exactly how thin the line was between living and dying, and how easy it was to step over. Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, but the caller ID said Amy Santos, Westbridge. "Yeah, so," Evelyn said. "Oh, thank God you picked up." Amy sounded breathless. "Have you seen it?" "Seen what?" "Check Twitter or Facebook or literally any social media." Evelyn didn't have social media. She deleted everything years ago after a particularly bad PTSD episode where she'd spent 3 hours doom-scrolling articles about IED attacks and couldn't sleep for 2 days. "Just tell me," Evelyn said. "Someone posted the full video, the whole code. You can see everything. You doing compressions, calling for atropine, Holloway freezing up. It's got like 2 million views already." Evelyn's stomach dropped. Who posted it? No idea. The account's anonymous. But people are losing their minds. They're calling you a hero, saying Holloway should lose his license, demanding the hospital release a statement. Administration's in full crisis mode. Great. Evelyn, this is good. People finally see what you can do. I don't want them to see. The words came out harsher than she meant. I just want to do my job. Amy was quiet for a moment. I know, but I don't think you get that choice anymore. They talked for a few more minutes, Amy filling her in on the gossip, the rumors, the chaos spreading through Westbridge's halls like a virus. When they hung up, Evelyn sat down on her couch and stared at the ceiling. She'd spent 7 years invisible, 7 years keeping her head down, avoiding attention, building a life where her past didn't matter. And now, in one night, all of it was gone. Her phone rang again, this time Lieutenant Voss. Carter? Voss said when she answered. You alive? Barely. Yeah, I figured. Listen, we need to talk. Can you come downtown? Federal Building, 3rd floor. When? Now would be good. Evelyn closed her eyes. I just got off a 12-hour shift. I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Voss paused. We got the full tox report back on Senator Klein. You were right. Organophosphate derivative, military grade. Someone didn't just try to kill him, they tried to make it look natural. So it's an active investigation. Very active. And you're a material witness. Plus, Voss hesitated. There's something else, something you need to see in person. Evelyn wanted to say no, wanted to crawl into bed, pull the covers over her head, and pretend the last 12 hours hadn't happened. But she'd never been good at pretending. Give me an hour, she said. The Federal Building was downtown, all glass and steel, and the kind of architecture designed to make you feel small. Evelyn showed her ID at the front desk, got a visitor badge, and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Voss met her in the hallway, looking tired but alert. Thanks for coming. Didn't feel like I had a choice. You didn't. Voss smiled faintly. Come on. She led Evelyn through a maze of cubicles and offices to a conference room in the back. Inside, 2 other people waited, a man in his 50s with steel gray hair and a suit that probably cost more than Evelyn's car, and a younger woman in tactical gear similar to Voss's. Evelyn Carter, Voss said, meet Special Agent Robert Tanner, FBI, and Captain Jessica Reyes, Homeland Security. Tanner stood, offered his hand. His grip was firm, professional. Ms. Carter, thank you for your service. Evelyn shook it briefly. What's this about? Sit, Voss said, pulling out a chair. Evelyn sat. They all did. Tanner opened a folder, slid a photograph across the table. Recognize this man? Evelyn looked. Mid-40s, pale skin, receding hairline, wire-rimmed glasses, generic enough to disappear in a crowd. No, she said. His name is Martin Hendricks. He was part of Senator Klein's security detail, background screening, threat assessment, logistics. He disappeared 6 hours before the poisoning. You think he did it? We know he did it. Tanner slid over another photo, security footage showing Hendricks near the senator's hotel room, holding what looked like a briefcase. We found traces of the same compound in his apartment. He's our guy. So why am I here? Tanner and Voss exchanged a look. Reyes leaned forward. Because Hendricks didn't work alone, Reyes said. We've been tracking his communications. He was in contact with at least 3 other individuals in the weeks leading up to the attempt. And one of those individuals, she pulled out another photo, works at Westbridge Medical Center. Evelyn's blood went cold. The face in the photo was familiar. Not someone she knew well, but someone she'd seen in the halls, passed in the cafeteria. A technician. Younger guy, maybe late 20s. Dark hair, always kept to himself. Kyle Morris, Voss said. Radiology tech. Been at Westbridge for 8 months. What's his connection? Evelyn asked. We're not sure yet, but his phone pinged near Hendricks's apartment twice last week, and he called in sick the night of the poisoning. Evelyn's mind raced. You think he was feeding Hendricks information, access points, security gaps? That's our working theory. Tanner leaned back. The problem is we don't have enough for a warrant yet. Morris is careful. He covers his tracks. So what do you need from me? Voss met her eyes. We need you to go back to work, act normal, and keep an eye on Morris. If he makes contact with anyone unusual, if he does anything out of pattern, we need to know. Evelyn stared at her. You want me to spy on my coworkers? We want you to help us catch the people who tried to kill a U.S. senator, Tanner said, before they try again. And if Morris figures out I'm watching him? He won't. You're just a nurse. As far as he knows, you've got no reason to suspect him. Evelyn almost laughed. I'm all over the news. I'm the opposite of inconspicuous right now. Which is actually perfect, Reyes said. Everyone's focused on you. Morris will be too busy watching the chaos to notice if you're watching him. It made a sick kind of sense, but that didn't mean Evelyn liked it. What if I say no? She asked. Tanner's expression hardened. Then we do this the slow way. Surveillance, wiretaps, months of investigation while Hendricks and his friends plan their next move. More people die, more families get destroyed. He paused. Or you help us, and we end this fast. Evelyn looked at Voss. You agree with this? Voss nodded. I wouldn't ask if I didn't think you could handle it. Handling it isn't the issue. I didn't sign up to be a spy. No, Voss said quietly. You signed up to save lives. This is just another way to do it. Evelyn sat back, rubbed her temples. Every instinct told her to walk away. This wasn't her fight. She'd left the world of tactical ops and covert operations behind. She was a nurse now, just a nurse. Except she wasn't. Not anymore. Maybe she never had been. Fine, she said. But I need rules. I'm not planting bugs or stealing files or any of that cloak and dagger nonsense. I watch. I report. That's it. Fair enough, Tanner said. And if this goes sideways, if Morris or anyone else gets hurt because of what I'm doing, we pull you out immediately, Voss promised. You have my word. Evelyn wasn't sure what Voss's word was worth, but it was better than nothing. They spent the next 30 minutes going over the details. What to look for, how to report, emergency contacts if things went bad. Reyes gave her a phone, small and nondescript, with a single number programmed in. Anything urgent, you call that? Reyes said. Day or night, we'll have someone on you within minutes. Comforting, Evelyn said flatly. When they finally let her go, the sun was high and bright, the kind of autumn afternoon that made you forget winter was coming. Evelyn walked to her car, feeling the weight of the phone in her pocket like a stone. She didn't go home. Instead, she drove to a park on the edge of the city, found a bench near a pond where ducks paddled in lazy circles. Families were out, kids on swings, couples holding hands, an old man feeding the birds. Normal, safe. The world she'd been trying to build for herself. And now she was about to risk it. Again. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Miss Carter, this is Jenna Castellanos. I'd like to meet with you tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office. It's important. Evelyn typed back, what's this about? The response came fast. Your future at Westbridge, please don't make me beg. Evelyn pocketed the phone, watched the ducks. One of them, smaller than the others, kept getting pushed away from the food. It'd paddle back, get shoved aside, try again. Stubborn little thing. She almost smiled. Her shift the next day started at 2 p.m. She showed up early, parked in her usual spot, and walked through the staff entrance like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. People stared. Whispers followed her through the halls, some admiring, some resentful, all curious. A junior nurse asked for a selfie. A doctor she'd never spoken to gave her a thumbs up. The receptionist at the main desk smiled and said, You're amazing. Evelyn hated all of it. She made it to the locker room, changed into scrubs, and checked the schedule. Normal assignments. Nothing unusual. Kyle Morris was on shift 2, radiology, basement level. She headed to the chief of staff's office first. Jenna Castellanos was in her early 50s, sharp-eyed and sharper dressed, the kind of woman who could run a hospital and a Fortune 500 company at the same time without breaking a sweat. Her office was on the top floor, corner view, the kind of space that came with serious power. Ms. Carter, Castellanos said, standing as Evelyn entered. Thank you for coming. You made it sound non-negotiable. Castellanos smiled. Perceptive. Sit, please. Evelyn sat. Castellanos stayed standing, arms crossed, studying her. I'll be direct, Castellanos said. What happened 2 nights ago put Westbridge in a very difficult position. We have a doctor who nearly killed a senator through incompetence. We have a nurse who violated protocol to save him. And we have the entire country watching to see what we do next." "Sounds rough," Evelyn said. "It is, which is why I'm offering you a choice." Castellanos leaned against her desk. "Option 1, we quietly move you to a different department. Less visibility, fewer questions, a raise to compensate for the hassle. You go back to being invisible." "And option 2? Option 2, you stay exactly where you are. ER, Trauma Bay, front lines. We make you the face of Westbridge's new patient care initiative. Press conferences, interviews, the works. You become our proof that we value skill over hierarchy." Evelyn stared. "You want to use me for PR? I want to recognize you publicly for what you did. There's a difference." "Not much of one." Castellanos tilted her head. "You don't trust me. I don't know you." "Fair. But let me be clear about something. I don't give a damn about your military record or your past or whatever demons you're running from. What I care about is that you saved a man's life when everyone else in that room failed. That's the person I want representing this hospital." "What about Holloway?" "Doctor, Holloway is on administrative leave pending review. If the investigation finds negligence, and it will, he's done." Evelyn felt something loosen in her chest. Not quite satisfaction, but close. "I need time to think," she said. "You have 24 hours. Castellanos handed her a card. "My personal number. Call me when you decide." Evelyn took the card, left the office, and headed down to the ER. The shift started normal enough. A kid with a broken arm, an elderly woman with chest pain, a construction worker who'd taken a nail gun to the hand. Standard chaos. But Evelyn's mind was split, half on her patients, half watching for Kyle Morris. She spotted him twice, once in the hallway outside radiology, once near the staff break room. Both times he looked normal. Tired, maybe. Distracted. But nothing suspicious. At 6 p.m., she took her break, grabbed coffee from the machine, and sat in the empty break room. Her phone buzzed, the one Reyes had given her. Morris just left the building. "Heading east on foot. Stay put unless we call." Evelyn deleted the message, drank her coffee. It tasted like burnt rubber. The rest of the shift crawled. More patients, more codes, more moments where Evelyn's hands moved faster than her thoughts, muscle memory taking over. At midnight, she clocked out, headed for the parking garage. Kyle Morris was waiting by her car. Evelyn stopped 10 feet away, heart rate spiking. Her hand drifted to her pocket where the emergency phone sat. Morris looked up, saw her, and smiled. "Hey, Evelyn, got a minute?" "Depends," she said carefully. "What do you need?" "Just wanted to say congrats, for the senator thing. Pretty badass." "Thanks." Morris stepped closer. Evelyn held her ground. "I was wondering," Morris said, voice casual, "if you've talked to anyone, about what happened." "Lots of people. Reporters, mostly. I mean, anyone official, like federal agents or whatever." Evelyn's blood went cold, but she kept her face neutral. "Why would I?" Morris shrugged. "Just heard rumors. You know how hospitals are. Gossip spreads. Haven't heard that one." "Huh." Morris looked at her for a long moment. Too long. "Well, if anyone does ask, about security or protocols or anything weird, you'd tell me, right? We're colleagues." "Sure," Evelyn lied. Morris smiled again. It didn't reach his eyes. "Great. See you around." He walked away, hands in his pockets, whistling. Evelyn waited until he disappeared around the corner, then pulled out the emergency phone and dialed. Reyes answered on the first ring. "Talk to me. Morris just approached me, asking if I'd talk to anyone official." "What'd you say?" "I played dumb, but he knows something's up." Reyes swore softly. "All right, we're moving the timeline. Stay away from him. Don't engage unless he forces it. And if he does, then you call us and get somewhere public, fast." The line went dead. Evelyn got in her car, locked the doors, and sat there for a full minute, breathing. This was a mistake. She should have said no, should have walked away. But even as she thought it, she knew it wasn't true. Because somewhere out there, people like Hendricks and Morris were planning their next move. And if Evelyn didn't help stop them, more people would die. She started the engine and drove home through empty streets, watching her mirrors the whole way. When she got to her apartment, the lights were on. She always left them off. Evelyn's hand went to her phone. She stood in the hallway, staring at her door, trying to decide if she was being paranoid or smart. Then the door opened. Lieutenant Voss stood there, looking apologetic. "Sorry, didn't mean to scare you, but we need to talk. Now." Evelyn stepped inside, shut the door. "How'd you get in?" "Federal warrant, and your locks are garbage." Voss gestured to the couch. "Sit." Evelyn sat. Voss paced. "Morris made a call 20 minutes ago. Encrypted line, but we tracked it. He's meeting someone tomorrow night. Abandoned warehouse on the South Docks. Let me guess. You want me there?" "No. We want you nowhere near it." Voss stopped pacing. "But we need you to keep him busy until then. Make sure he doesn't spook and run." "How am I supposed to do that?" "Be visible. Be normal. Give him no reason to think we're on to him." Evelyn laughed, bitter. "Normal, right. Because my life's so normal right now." Voss sat down across from her. "I know this is hard, but you're doing good work. Real work. Doesn't feel like it." "It never does." Voss leaned forward. "Look, I've read your file. All of it. I know what happened in Kandahar. I know why you left." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Then you know I'm not cut out for this." "I know you think you're not, but I also know you pulled 18 people out of a burning building while half of it collapsed on you. So forgive me if I don't buy the 'I'm not cut out for this' routine." They sat in silence. Outside, a siren wailed past. "What do you want from me?" Evelyn asked quietly. "I want you to trust yourself." Voss stood. "One more day. That's all I'm asking. Keep Morris calm. Then we move in, and this is over. And if something goes wrong, then I'll be the first one through the door to get you out." Voss left the same way she came, quietly, efficiently, leaving no trace she had been there except the faint smell of coffee and gunpowder. Evelyn sat alone in her apartment, staring at the wall. One more day. She could do that. She had to. Because if she didn't, the people who tried to kill Senator Klein would try again. And next time, they might succeed. She went to bed but didn't sleep. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the buildings settle around her. Somewhere in the city, Kyle Morris was planning something. Somewhere, Hendricks was hiding. Somewhere, the next attack was being set in motion. And tomorrow, Evelyn would walk back into Westbridge Medical Center and pretend everything was fine. Just another day. Just another shift. Just another lie. Her phone buzzed one last time before dawn. A text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. Stop, or people you care about will pay the price." No signature, no name. Evelyn stared at the message until her vision blurred, then deleted it. But the words stayed burned into her mind. Because whoever sent it knew exactly where to hit her. And that meant the game had just changed. Evelyn didn't call Voss. Not yet. Instead, she took a screenshot of the threat, then deleted the message and powered off her phone completely. Old habit from deployment. If they could send threats, they could track location. She pulled the battery from the emergency phone Reyes had given her and wrapped both devices in aluminum foil, shoved them in her freezer behind a bag of forgotten peas. Paranoid, maybe. But paranoia had kept her alive in places where mistakes got measured in body bags. She made coffee as the sun came up, hands steadier than they should have been. The threat had been specific enough to be real, but vague enough to be anyone. People you care about. The problem was, Evelyn didn't have many of those left. Her parents had died in a car accident while she was overseas. No siblings, no partner. The closest thing she had to family was Amy, and maybe a handful of nurses she'd worked with long enough to trust. That narrowed the target list considerably. She got dressed, checked the peephole 3 times before leaving her apartment, and took the stairs instead of the elevator. The parking garage was empty except for her car and a blue sedan she didn't recognize. She memorized the plate number, checked underneath her vehicle for anything that didn't belong, then drove to Westbridge, taking a route that zigzagged through side streets. No one followed, or if they did, they were better than she was. The hospital came into view just after 7, gray concrete and glass, the kind of building designed by committee to be functional rather than beautiful. News vans still camped outside the main entrance, reporters doing their morning stand-ups with the Westbridge logo carefully framed behind them. Evelyn used the staff entrance, badged in, kept her head down. The ER was already chaotic. A multi-car pile-up on the interstate had flooded them with trauma cases. Evelyn clocked in, grabbed her assignment sheet, and dove into the work without thinking. A teenage girl with a shattered femur, an older man with internal bleeding, a woman in her 30s who kept asking for her daughter, who'd been pronounced dead in the ambulance. Evelyn held the woman's hand while Dr. Lindholm delivered the news, watched her face crumple, felt the familiar weight settle in her chest. This part never got easier. You learned to compartmentalize, to keep moving, but you never stopped feeling it. By 9 a.m., the immediate surge had settled into a manageable rhythm. Evelyn was restocking trauma supplies when she spotted Kyle Morris near the radiology corridor talking on his phone. His body language was tense, shoulders hunched, free hand gesturing sharply. He glanced around, saw Evelyn watching, and immediately ended the call. He walked toward her. Evelyn kept her hands busy organizing IV kits, pretending she hadn't noticed. "Morning," Morris said, too casual. "Hey, crazy shift, huh?" "They all are." Morris leaned against the supply cart, blocking her path. "You look tired. Everything okay?" "Fine." Evelyn met his eyes. "You?" "Yeah, just a lot on my mind." He smiled, but it was wrong, too tight. "Listen, about last night. I didn't mean to come off weird. I just worry, with everything that happened, people asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "Just questions. About protocols. Who had access to what, timeline stuff." Morris shifted his weight. "Have you talked to anyone besides reporters?" "Why do you keep asking me that?" "I don't keep—" Morris stopped, recalibrated. "I'm just looking out for you. We're colleagues. If something's going on, I want to help." Evelyn picked up the restocked cart, started pushing it toward the supply room. "Nothing's going on." Morris followed. "Evelyn, if someone approached you, federal agents, hospital administration, anyone, you'd tell me, right?" She stopped, turned to face him. "Why would I?" The question hung between them. Morris's smile faltered. "Because we're on the same team," he said quietly. "Are we?" Something flickered behind his eyes. Calculation, reassessment. Then he laughed, forced and brittle. "You're paranoid, I get it. Big scary federal investigation. Everyone's on edge, but I'm just trying to—" "Kyle," Evelyn kept her voice level. "I've got work to do." She walked away before he could respond, pushing the cart into the supply room and shutting the door behind her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She pulled out her personal phone, still powered off, and stared at it. Call Voss. Tell her Morris was escalating. But if she made the call, if they moved now, they might miss whoever Morris was meeting tonight. And the threat had been clear: stop, or people would pay. Evelyn powered the phone on. 3 new messages, all from Amy. "Hey, you okay? You seemed off yesterday. Call me when you get a chance." "Evelyn, seriously, I'm starting to worry." She typed back, "I'm fine. Busy shift, talk later." The response came immediately. "Thank God. Thought maybe you were avoiding me, LOL." Evelyn almost smiled. Then her phone rang. Castellanos. "Ms. Carter," the chief of staff said without preamble, "have you made a decision?" "About what?" "Your future here, the offer I made yesterday." Evelyn had forgotten completely. The choice between invisibility and becoming Westbridge's poster child felt like it belonged to a different lifetime. "I need more time," Evelyn said. "You have until end of business today. After that, I make the decision for you." Castellanos paused. "For what it's worth, I hope you stay visible. We need people like you." The line went dead. Evelyn pocketed the phone and went back to work. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of patients and procedures. She caught glimpses of Morris twice more, once near the cafeteria, once outside talking to someone she didn't recognize. A man in his 40s, suit and tie, government haircut. She took a photo with her phone pretending to check messages. Sent it to the emergency number Reyes had given her with a single word. Who? No response. Lunch came and went. Evelyn grabbed a granola bar from the vending machine, ate it standing up. Amy found her near the nurse's station, pulled her aside. Okay, what's going on? Amy asked. And don't say nothing. You've been weird for 2 days. Just tired. Bullshit. I know tired. This is something else. Amy crossed her arms. Does it have to do with the senator thing? Everything has to do with the senator thing now. Evelyn. Amy's voice softened. Talk to me. For a moment, Evelyn almost did. Almost told her everything. The federal investigation, Morris, the threat. But Amy was one of the people she cared about, which meant Amy was exactly who she needed to keep in the dark. I'm handling it, Evelyn said. Handling what? Amy, please, just trust me. Amy studied her face, then sighed. Fine, but if you need help, you'll be the first person I call. It was a lie, but a kind one. At 2 p.m., Evelyn's emergency phone buzzed in her locker. She grabbed it, saw a text from Reyes. Man in the photo is Kenneth Marsh, DOJ prosecutor. He's clean, probably asking Morris routine questions. Stay calm. Extraction team in position for tonight. Do not engage Morris again unless absolutely necessary. Evelyn deleted the message, shoved the phone back in her locker. Her shift didn't end until 8. 6 more hours of pretending everything was normal while the clock ticked down toward whatever Morris had planned. The afternoon brought a new wave of emergencies. A construction accident, 2 workers trapped under scaffolding, one with a tension pneumothorax that needed immediate decompression. Evelyn assisted Dr. Lindholm, hands moving on autopilot while her mind ran worst-case scenarios. If Morris suspected she was working with the feds, he'd either run or escalate. If he ran, they lost their chance to catch whoever he was meeting. If he escalated, Carter, I need you focused, Lindholm said sharply. Evelyn blinked, realized she'd been standing frozen with a scalpel in her hand. Sorry. You okay? Fine. Lindholm didn't look convinced, but didn't push. They finished the procedure, got the patient stabilized, and transferred to ICU. When Evelyn stepped out of the trauma bay, Morris was waiting in the hallway. We need to talk, he said. Now. Evelyn's pulse spiked. I'm working. So am I. But this is more important. Morris glanced around, lowered his voice. There's a situation. Something you need to know about. Then tell me. Not here. Too many ears. Morris jerked his head toward the stairwell. 5 minutes. Every instinct screamed trap, but if she refused, if she showed fear, Morris would know for sure she was on to him. Fine, Evelyn said. Lead the way. They walked to the stairwell, Morris keeping half a step ahead. The door closed behind them with a heavy click, cutting off the hospital noise. The concrete space smelled like cleaning chemicals and stale air. Morris turned to face her, and for the first time Evelyn saw real fear in his eyes. I know you've been watching me, he said. Evelyn kept her face neutral. What are you talking about? Don't. Morris held up a hand. I'm not stupid. The feds got to you, didn't they? After the senator. They asked you to keep an eye on me. Kyle, I'm not part of whatever they think I'm part of. His voice cracked. I swear to you, I didn't know what Hendricks was planning. Evelyn's mind raced. This could be genuine panic or a calculated performance. Then why are they looking at you? Because I'm an idiot. Morris laughed, bitter. Hendricks approached me 6 months ago. Said he needed someone inside the hospital for a security audit. Background checks, access protocols, staffing schedules. It seemed legit. He had credentials, authorization forms, everything. You gave him information. I gave him what he asked for. I didn't know. Morris's hands shook. I didn't know he was planning to kill someone. What about tonight, the meeting at the docks? Morris's face went white. How do you... He stopped, understanding dawning. They're listening to my phone, my apartment, everything. Probably. Then you need to tell them I'm not the enemy. Morris grabbed her arm. Evelyn didn't pull away, but her free hand moved toward her pocket where she'd stashed a pair of trauma shears. Not much, but sharp enough to matter. The meeting tonight, it's not what they think. I'm trying to fix this. By meeting with Hendrix's contacts? By getting evidence, names, communications, proof of who's really behind this. Morris's grip tightened. Hendrix was just a hired hand. Someone else gave the orders. Someone with resources, connections. I find out who, I give it to the feds. Maybe I don't spend the rest of my life in prison. It was plausible. Desperate people did stupid things, but plausible didn't mean true. Let go of me, Evelyn said quietly. Morris released her immediately, stepped back. I need your help. No. Evelyn, please, you're the only person who might actually believe me. I don't know what I believe. Then help me prove it. Morris pulled out his phone, showed her a text conversation. This is the contact. He's meeting me at 9 tonight. Warehouse District, South Docks. I record the conversation, get him talking about who hired Hendrix, and we have everything. Or you walk into a trap and get killed. Or the feds raid the place and I get arrested before I can prove I'm not guilty. Morris pocketed the phone. Either way, I'm done. But if you come with me, if you're there as a witness, absolutely not. Why not? You're a federal asset now, right? They'd believe you. I'm a nurse, not a field agent. You were a combat medic. You've done worse. Morris's voice took on an edge. Or are you too scared to actually take a risk? The manipulation was obvious, but it still landed. Evelyn had spent 7 years playing it safe, avoiding exactly this kind of situation. And look where it got her. Threats in the night, federal agents in her apartment, lies piled on lies. Even if I wanted to help, Evelyn said carefully, the feds won't let me anywhere near that warehouse. Then don't tell them. That's insane. So is letting an innocent man go to prison. Morris met her eyes. I know you don't know me that well, but you know what it's like to be invisible, to have people make decisions about your life without asking what you think. Don't let them do that to me. It was a good speech, probably rehearsed, but the fear in his voice sounded real. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She checked it. Reyes. Status check. Everything okay? She typed back, fine. Morris approached me again, nervous but nothing aggressive. Morris watched her type. What are you telling them? The truth. You're scared. And I'm handling it. Morris nodded slowly. So you'll help. I didn't say that. But you're thinking about it. Evelyn was, which was the problem, because the smart play was to walk away, tell Reyes everything, let the professionals handle it. But the smart play assumed the professionals had all the answers. And Evelyn had seen enough federal operations go sideways to know that wasn't always true. I need to think, she said. We don't have time. The meeting's in 7 hours. Then you better hope I think fast. Evelyn left him in the stairwell, went back to the ER. Her hands were shaking again. She locked herself in a bathroom stall, sat down, and tried to breathe through the pressure building in her chest. Option 1. Tell Reyes everything. Let them handle Morris. Trust the system. Option 2. Go with Morris. Be the witness he needed. Take the risk. Option 3. Disappear. Walk away from all of it. Let someone else be the hero. She sat there for 5 minutes, then 10. Someone knocked on the stall door. Occupied, Evelyn said. Evelyn, it's me. Amy's voice. You've been in there a while, you okay? No. Yeah, just needed a minute. Can I come in? Evelyn unlocked the stall. Amy slipped inside, shut the door behind her. The space was barely big enough for one person, let alone two. Spill, Amy said. What? Whatever's eating you, spill. Evelyn looked at her friend, genuinely kind, genuinely worried. The kind of person who still believed the system worked, that good people got rewarded and bad people got caught. If I asked you to trust me, Evelyn said quietly, without knowing why, could you? Amy frowned. That's a weird question. Could you? I mean, yeah, obviously. But I need you to go home early tonight. Evelyn gripped Amy's shoulders. Call in sick, family emergency, whatever. Just don't be here after 8. Evelyn, you're scaring me. I'm trying to protect you. From what? Evelyn didn't answer. Amy's eyes widened. Oh my God, this is about Morris, isn't it? The federal thing. Amy, I knew something was wrong. I knew it. Amy grabbed Evelyn's hands. Whatever you're planning, don't. Please. Let someone else handle it. There is no one else. That's not true. You have options. Do I? Evelyn pulled her hands free. Because from where I'm standing, every option ends with someone getting hurt. I'm just trying to pick the one where it's not you. Amy's face crumpled. What about you? I'll be fine. You don't know that. No, but I know if I do nothing, people die, and I'm tired of living with that. They stood in the cramped stall, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Finally, Amy nodded. Okay, she said. I'll go home. But you call me. The second this is over, you call me. I will. Promise. I promise. Amy hugged her, quick and fierce, then left. Evelyn stayed in the stall another minute, gathering herself. When she came out, her reflection in the mirror looked like someone she used to know, someone who'd made hard calls in bad situations and lived with the consequences. She pulled out the emergency phone, powered it on, called Reyes. Carter, report. Morris is planning something tonight. Meeting at the South Docks, 9 p.m. He claims he's trying to gather evidence, not participate. We know about the meeting. We'll be there. He wants me to come with him as a witness. Silence. Then, absolutely not. He says if I don't, he'll assume I'm setting him up and he'll run. Then we'll track him down. And the person he's supposed to meet, they'll disappear. You'll lose your shot. Reyes swore. This is not your job. I know, but I'm offering anyway. Why? Good question. Evelyn stared at her reflection. Because I'm tired of watching from the sidelines. Another pause. Evelyn could almost hear Reyes running scenarios, weighing risks. If we do this, Reyes said finally, you follow our rules. You wear a wire. You don't engage. You observe and report. The second things go wrong, you extract. Clear? Clear. And Carter, if you get hurt because you decided to play hero, I will personally make sure you regret it. Noted. We'll send someone to brief you at 7. Be ready. The line went dead. Evelyn pocketed the phone and went back to work. The rest of the shift passed in slow motion, every minute stretched thin, every patient a distraction from the clock ticking toward 9. She caught Morris watching her twice, his expression unreadable. At 7, she clocked out and went to her car. A black SUV was parked 3 spots down. The door opened and Lieutenant Voss stepped out. Get in, Voss said. Evelyn climbed into the passenger seat. The interior smelled like coffee and gun oil. Voss handed her a small device. Looked like a button, felt like metal. Panic button, Voss said. You press it, we come in hot. No questions, no hesitation. Got it. Voss pulled out a second device, a wire, thin as dental floss. This goes under your shirt. Audio only, but high quality. We'll hear everything. Evelyn let Voss help her with the wire, feeling the cold metal against her skin. It was lighter than the one she'd worn overseas, but the weight was the same. Team's already in position, Voss said. Snipers on the rooftops, tactical units, and unmarked vans. Morris won't see us, but we'll see everything. What about the person he's meeting? Unknown. Could be Hendricks himself. Could be his handler. Could be nobody. This whole thing could be Morris trying to flush us out. Voss met her eyes. You sure about this? No. Good. Means you're thinking. Voss handed her a phone, different from the emergency one. This stays on. We can hear you. You can hear us. If I say abort, you abort. No arguments. What if Morris makes a move, you hit the panic button and drop? We'll handle the rest. Evelyn nodded. Her mouth was dry. One more thing, Voss said. The threat you got last night, we traced it. Burner phone. Routed through 3 different towers. Professional work. So it was real. Very real. Which is why we have a protective detail on Amy Santos. She doesn't know, but she's covered. Evelyn felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to get through tonight. Voss checked her watch. It's 7:45. Morris is expecting you at 8:30. You ready? Yeah. Then let's go catch some bad guys. Evelyn drove her own car, Voss following at a distance in the SUV. They met Morris in a parking lot 2 blocks from the docks. He was already there, leaning against a gray Honda, smoking a cigarette with shaking hands. You came, Morris said when Evelyn got out. I came. The feds know? Yes. Morris's face tightened. So this is a setup? No, this is me giving you a chance to prove you're telling the truth. Evelyn gestured to the wire under her shirt. They're listening. If what you said is real, if you're really trying to help, this is your shot. Morris stared at her, then laughed. You're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the dumbest. Probably both. He flicked the cigarette away. All right, let's do this. They walked toward the docks, a maze of rusted warehouses and empty shipping containers. The air smelled like salt water and oil. Evelyn's hand stayed near her pocket, where the panic button sat like a live grenade. Morris led them to a warehouse at the end of the row, door hanging half open, windows shattered. Inside was darkness and the sound of water dripping. He said to wait inside, Morris whispered. Evelyn's every instinct screamed to run, but she followed him through the door anyway. The warehouse was massive, concrete floor, exposed beams, enough shadows to hide an army. Evelyn could feel Voss in her ear, breathing steady. Contact in 3 minutes, Voss murmured. Stay alert. Morris paced, hands in his pockets. What if he doesn't show? Then we leave. What if he does and the feds spook him? Then we improvise. Morris laughed, shaky. You're calmer than I expected. I've had practice. Headlights swept through the broken windows. A car pulled up outside, engine idling, door opening. Footsteps. A figure appeared in the doorway, backlit and featureless. Kyle Morris, the figure said. Male voice, flat and professional. You're late. I'm here now. The figure stepped into the warehouse. Evelyn's breath caught. It wasn't Hendricks. It was Kenneth Marsh, the DOJ prosecutor from the photo. Voss's voice crackled in her ear. Hold position, do not engage. Marsh's eyes found Evelyn. He smiled. Ms. Carter, he said pleasantly, I was hoping you'd come. Evelyn's hand moved toward the panic button. I wouldn't, Marsh said. He pulled a gun from his jacket, smooth, practiced. Not if you want your friend Amy Santos to see tomorrow. Everything stopped. That's right, Marsh continued. Your protective detail is good, but mine is better. Right now there's a man in her apartment, waiting. If I don't call in the next 10 minutes and give him a very specific code, he shrugged. Well, you can imagine. Evelyn's vision tunneled. In her ear, Voss was shouting, abort, extract, move now. But the words felt distant. Here's how this works, Marsh said. You take off the wire, slowly, then you hand it to me. Then we all have a conversation about what happens next. Morris stepped back. Wait, this wasn't the deal. The deal changed. Marsh's gun shifted to Morris. Turns out you're more useful as leverage than as an asset. Sorry. Evelyn's mind raced. If she took off the wire, Voss lost audio. If she hit the panic button, Marsh made a call and Amy died. If she did nothing. She reached under her shirt and pulled out the wire, held it up. Good, Marsh said. Now drop it. Evelyn dropped it. The small device hit the concrete with a faint click. Marsh crushed it under his heel. Now, he said, gesturing with the gun. Let's talk about what you're going to do for me. Evelyn's eyes stayed on Marsh's gun, calculating angles and distances the way she'd been trained a lifetime ago. 15 feet between them. Concrete floor, no cover except rusted machinery 20 feet to her left. Morris stood frozen 3 feet behind her, breathing too fast. The panic button in her pocket might as well have been on the moon. What do you want? Evelyn asked. Marsh smiled. Straight to business. I like that. He kept the gun level, relaxed but ready. Senator Klein was supposed to die, quietly. Heart attack, maybe a stroke. Something natural that wouldn't raise questions. But you, he gestured with his free hand, You had to be the hero. He was poisoned. Very good organophosphate derivative. Military grade, untraceable, metabolizes fast. Should have been perfect. Marsh's jaw tightened. Would have been, if you hadn't recognized the symptoms. Who hired you? Evelyn's mind ran through every second since the wire went dead. Voss had lost audio 90 seconds ago. Tactical teams would be moving, but carefully. One wrong step and Marsh makes his call. Klein's got enemies. Which one wanted him dead bad enough to recruit a federal prosecutor? You think I'm going to monologue? Marsh laughed. I've seen those movies. Villain talks. Hero makes a move. Everything falls apart. He shook his head. No. Here's what happens. You walk out of here with me. Morris stays. Insurance, in case your friends get creative. We drive somewhere quiet. I make a call. My associate leaves Amy's apartment. Then we discuss your future. What future? The one where you disappear. New name, new city, new life. I've got resources, fake documents, cash, enough to set you up somewhere they'll never find you. And if I say no, then Amy dies. Slowly, painfully. And you get to live knowing you could have saved her. Marsh checked his watch. 7 minutes until I need to make that call. Clock's ticking. Morris finally found his voice. You said you'd help me. You said if I fed you information, you're an idiot, Kyle. Marsh didn't look at him. You were always an idiot. Hendricks needed a patsy inside Westbridge, someone too desperate to ask questions. You played your part perfectly. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. There's a difference. Marsh's eyes stayed on Evelyn. 6 minutes, Ms. Carter. What's it going to be? Evelyn's hand moved slowly toward her pocket. Can I call someone first? Tell them I'm okay? No. Then how do I know you'll actually let Amy go? You don't. Marsh shrugged. But what choice do you have? Outside, Evelyn heard it, faint but distinct. The scrape of boots on gravel, multiple sets. Voss's team moving into position. Marsh heard it too. His expression hardened. Disappointing, he said. I really hoped you'd be smarter than this. He pulled out his phone with his left hand, gun still trained on Evelyn with his right, started to dial. Evelyn's fingers closed around the panic button. Everything happened in the space between heartbeats. She hit the button and dropped. Marsh's gun barked. The round punched through empty air where her head had been. Concrete chips sprayed as she rolled left, toward the rusted machinery. Morris screamed. Glass shattered as tactical teams breached the windows. Federal agents, drop the weapon! Marsh fired twice more. Wild shots, panic shooting. Evelyn scrambled behind a corroded metal drum, her ears ringing. She could hear Morris sobbing, boots pounding on concrete. Voss's voice cutting through the chaos. Marsh, gun down now! A pause, then Marsh's voice eerily calm. One call, that's all it takes. Evelyn risked a look. Marsh had moved behind a support pillar, phone in one hand, gun in the other. 6 tactical officers surrounded the warehouse, rifles trained, red laser dots painting the pillar's edge. Voss stood at the entrance, her weapon up, her face hard. Put down the phone, Kenneth, Voss said. Can't do that. Marsh's voice echoed. One button and the girl dies. You're not making that call. Want to bet? Evelyn's mind raced. If Marsh was telling the truth, if someone really was in Amy's apartment, every second mattered. But if he was bluffing, if this was just a last desperate play. Her personal phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, hands shaking. A text from an unknown number. No one's in Amy's apartment. Building's been locked down since 1900 hours. He's lying. Rhea's relief and rage hit simultaneously. Evelyn looked at Marsh's position, at the tactical officers waiting for the order, at Morris curled on the floor covering his head. She stood up. Evelyn, get down! Voss shouted. Evelyn ignored her. She walked into the open, hands visible, moving toward Marsh's pillar. You're bluffing, she called out. Marsh's laugh was ugly. You willing to risk her life on that? Yes. Evelyn kept walking, 20 feet, 15. Because I know how this works. You don't have assets, you don't have backup. You're just a man with a gun making threats you can't keep. Stop moving or I'll shoot. No, you won't. You need me alive. I'm the only leverage you have left. 10 feet. The laser dots tracked Marsh, waiting. Evelyn could see him now, pressed against the pillar, sweat on his face, the phone shaking in his hand. I can still make the call, Marsh said. Then make it. Silence. Marsh stared at her, trying to read whether she was bluffing or insane. Evelyn stopped 5 feet from the pillar. You made a mistake tonight. You thought I'd run. Thought I'd choose the easy way out, save myself and disappear. She shook her head. But I spent 7 years running. I'm done. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but you're definitely going to prison. Marsh's finger moved toward the phone's screen. Sniper team, green light, Voss said quietly into her radio. The shot came from outside, a single crack that echoed through the warehouse. The phone exploded in Marsh's hand, pieces of metal and glass spraying. He screamed, dropped the gun, clutched his bleeding fingers. Tactical officers swarmed. Marsh went down hard, face pressed to concrete, hands zip-tied behind his back. Someone was shouting Miranda rights. Someone else called for a medic. Evelyn stood in the middle of it all, watching. Voss appeared beside her. You okay? Yeah. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Worked, didn't it? Barely. Voss grabbed her arm, not gently. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. They stared at each other. Finally, Voss let go, shook her head. You're either fearless or insane. I keep hearing that. Morris was being helped to his feet by 2 officers, still shaking. He saw Evelyn, opened his mouth, closed it again. What was there to say? Is he under arrest? Evelyn asked. Protective custody for now, Voss said. We'll sort out what he knew and when, but yeah, probably. She paused. For what it's worth, I think he was telling the truth. About not knowing Hendrik's plan. Doesn't matter. He helped anyway. No, it doesn't. Marsh was being carried out on a stretcher, his hand wrapped in gauze, an officer on each side. He saw Evelyn and tried to say something, but one of the officers told him to shut up. He did. Evelyn watched him go, feeling nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, just the hollow ache that came when adrenaline drained and left emptiness behind. Come on, Voss said. We need your statement. They drove to the federal building in separate cars, Evelyn following a black SUV through empty streets. It was almost midnight. The city looked different at this hour, quieter, like it was holding its breath. The debriefing took 3 hours. Evelyn sat in a conference room with Voss, Reyes, and Agent Tanner, walking them through everything. The threat, Morris's approach, Marsh's confession, every detail recorded, documented, filed away. Marsh was coordinating the whole operation, Tanner explained, laying out printed emails and phone records. He recruited Hendricks 18 months ago, used his DOJ access to bury background checks, forge credentials, create a paper trail that made everything look legitimate. Why Klein? Evelyn asked. The senator was leading an investigation into defense contract fraud. Marsh's name was about to come up. Millions in kickbacks, classified information sold to private contractors. Klein dies. The investigation stalls. Marsh walks away clean. Tanner tapped the documents. Would have worked too. Who else is involved? We're still digging, but Marsh's phone had encrypted contacts, at least a dozen names, some in government, some in private sector. This goes deep. Evelyn rubbed her temples. How long until this goes public? Soon. DOJ wants to get ahead of it. Press conference tomorrow. Full disclosure. Tanner leaned back. You'll be part of it. The nurse who stopped an assassination and exposed a corrupt federal prosecutor. Media's going to eat it up. I don't want media attention. Too late for that. Reyes slid a folder across the table. Official commendation from Homeland Security. Civilian Medal of Valor. It'll be presented at the press conference. Evelyn didn't open the folder. What about Amy? Is she safe? Building's still under surveillance, but yeah, she's fine, probably wondering why tactical teams are camped in her lobby. Reyes smiled faintly. We'll brief her tomorrow. I want to do it. She deserves to hear it from me. All right. They wrapped up just after 3 a.m. Voss walked Evelyn to her car, handed her a business card. Job offer still stands, Voss said. Tactical Medical Division. Better pay, better benefits, chance to actually use your skills. I'll think about it. Do that. Voss paused. You did good tonight, really good. Don't let anyone tell you different. Evelyn nodded, got in her car, and drove home. The streets were empty now, just streetlights and shadows. She parked in her usual spot, climbed the stairs to her apartment, and stood outside the door for a full minute before unlocking it. Inside looked the same. Untouched. Safe. She collapsed on the couch without changing clothes, stared at the ceiling, and tried to process everything. Marsh arrested, Morris in custody, the conspiracy exposed. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something she wasn't ready for. Her phone rang. Amy. Please tell me you're alive, Amy said when Evelyn answered. I'm alive. I'm coming over. Amy, it's 3 a.m. I don't care, I'll be there in 10 minutes. The line went dead. Amy showed up in 9 minutes, still wearing pajamas under a coat, her hair a mess. She didn't say anything, just walked in and hugged Evelyn hard enough to hurt. I'm okay, Evelyn said quietly. You're an idiot. Yeah. They sat on the couch, Amy refusing to let go of Evelyn's hand. Evelyn told her everything, the edited version, the one that didn't include how close she'd come to getting shot. Amy listened, her face cycling through shock, anger, fear, and finally something like pride. You stopped them, Amy said. I helped. Don't do that. Don't minimize it. Amy squeezed her hand. You saved the senator. You caught a corrupt prosecutor. You risked your life to protect people. That's not nothing. It doesn't feel like much, because you're exhausted and probably in shock. Amy stood. When's the last time you ate? I don't know. Right, I'm making food. You're going to eat it, then you're going to sleep, and tomorrow we're going to figure out what comes next. What came next arrived faster than expected. The press conference was scheduled for 2 p.m. at DOJ headquarters. Evelyn spent the morning answering more questions, signing more documents, trying to ignore the messages flooding her phone. News outlets wanted interviews, hospitals wanted to offer her jobs, random people wanted to tell her she was a hero. She deleted most of them. At 1 p.m., a stylist arrived at her apartment, sent by the DOJ's PR team to make sure she looked appropriate for the cameras. Evelyn endured 20 minutes of hair and makeup, changed into clothes she never wore, and stared at herself in the mirror. She looked like someone playing dress-up. The car that picked her up was government-issued tinted windows, driver who didn't make small talk. They pulled into the DOJ building's underground garage, took a private elevator to the 8th floor. Agent Tanner met her in the hallway. Ready? He asked. No. Good answer. He led her to a green room where other people were waiting. Voss, Reyes, a woman Evelyn didn't recognize in an expensive suit. This is Deputy Attorney General Patricia Simmons. She'll be running the presser. Simmons shook Evelyn's hand, her grip professional. Ms. Carter, thank you for being here. Did I have a choice? Simmons smiled. Not really, but I appreciate you pretending. She gestured to a monitor showing the press room, packed with reporters, cameras, lights. We're going to make a statement about Marsh's arrest and the broader investigation. Then we'll introduce you and present the commendation. You'll say a few words. Nothing long, just thank the team, deflect credit, standard stuff. Questions? What if I mess up? You won't. You walked into a warehouse with a man pointing a gun at you. A press conference is nothing. Evelyn wasn't sure that logic held, but she nodded anyway. At 2 p.m. sharp, they walked out onto the stage. The camera lights were blinding. Evelyn stood to the side while Simmons approached the podium, flanked by Tanner and the FBI director. Good afternoon, Simmons began. Earlier this week, Senator David Klein was the target of an assassination attempt using a sophisticated poison designed to mimic natural causes. Thanks to the quick thinking and exceptional skill of medical personnel at Westbridge Medical Center, the senator survived. What we've learned since is that this attack was not the work of foreign agents or terrorists, but rather a corrupt federal official seeking to silence an investigation into his criminal activities. The room erupted with shouted questions. Simmons raised a hand. Kenneth Marsh, a prosecutor with the Department of Justice, has been arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, abuse of office, and multiple counts of fraud and corruption. We are currently investigating his network of associates and expect additional arrests in the coming days. More questions. Simmons ignored them. The individual most responsible for stopping this plot is here with us today. Evelyn Carter, a nurse at Westbridge Medical Center and a decorated combat veteran, recognized the symptoms of poisoning when other medical professionals missed them. Her actions directly saved Senator Klein's life. Additionally, Ms. Carter assisted federal agents in gathering evidence that led to Marsh's arrest, placing herself in considerable danger to ensure justice was served. Simmons gestured for Evelyn to approach. Evelyn's legs felt wooden, but she made it to the podium. Voss stepped forward, holding a small box. On behalf of the Department of Homeland Security, Voss said, her voice carrying across the room, I am honored to present Evelyn Carter with the Civilian Medal of Valor, recognizing extraordinary courage in preventing harm to others. She opened the box. Inside was a medal, simple, elegant, heavier than it looked. Voss pinned it to Evelyn's jacket, then stepped back and saluted. The room exploded with camera flashes. Evelyn stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Her hands gripped the edges of the wood to keep them from shaking. I'm not good at speeches, she said. The microphone amplified her voice, made it sound steadier than she felt. What happened this week? It wasn't just me. Lieutenant Voss and her team, Captain Reyes, Agent Tanner, the doctors and nurses at Westbridge, they all played a part. I just did what anyone with my training would have done. Ms. Carter, a reporter in the front row. Is it true you're a former combat medic? Yes. Why didn't you tell anyone at the hospital about your background? Evelyn paused. Because it didn't seem relevant. I was there to help patients, not talk about myself. But surely my experience taught me that the people doing the real work don't usually get recognition. They just do the job and go home. Evelyn met the reporter's eyes. I'm only standing here because a lot of things went right. A lot of people made smart decisions under pressure. I'm grateful for that. But I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to let a bad thing happen if I could stop it. Another reporter. What about Kenneth Marsh? How did you feel when you realized a federal prosecutor was behind the attack? Angry, disappointed, but not surprised. Evelyn's voice hardened. People in power abuse it all the time. The only difference this time is he got caught. Simmons stepped forward, trying to regain control. Ms. Carter will not be taking further questions at this time. One more. A woman in the back. Ms. Carter, what's next for you? Evelyn looked at her, then at the cameras, then at the faces watching. She thought about the offer from Voss, the offer from Castellanos, the dozens of opportunities now open to her because people finally saw what she could do. I don't know yet, she said honestly, but I'm done being invisible. The press conference ended 10 minutes later. Evelyn escaped to the green room, pulled off the jacket with the medal still pinned to it, and sat down. Her hands were shaking again. Voss appeared in the doorway. That was good. Better than good. I hate cameras. Yeah, well, get used to them. You're famous now. Great. Voss sat beside her. Seriously, though, you okay? I don't know. Evelyn stared at the medal. A week ago, I was nobody. Now I'm this, and I don't know what to do with it. You do what you've always done. You show up. You help people. The only difference is now they'll actually listen when you talk. What if I don't want them to listen? Too bad. Voss stood. But here's the thing. You earned this. Not because you're a veteran or because you got lucky. Because when it mattered, you made the right call. Don't let anyone take that from you, especially not yourself. She left. Evelyn sat alone with the medal, turning it over in her hands. Her phone buzzed. A text from Castellanos. Congratulations. My office, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. We need to discuss your future at Westbridge. This time, I won't take no for an answer. Evelyn almost smiled. Another text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. Ms. Carter, my name is Robert Klein. I'm Senator Klein's son. My father wanted me to reach out personally. He'd like to meet you, to thank you for saving his life. Please let me know when you're available. Evelyn stared at the message. Senator Klein was awake, recovering, alive because she'd recognized a pattern no one else had seen. She typed back, "Tell him I'm glad he's okay. No meeting necessary." The response came immediately. "He insists. And when my father insists, it's easier to just say yes. Please." Evelyn sighed. "Fine. But not for a few days. I need to sleep first." "Understood." "Thank you." She pocketed the phone, stood up, and walked back out into the hallway. Tanner was waiting. "One more thing," he said. "Marsh is asking to talk to you." Evelyn stopped. "Why?" "He won't say, but he's refusing to cooperate unless you agree to visit him. Tell him to go to hell. We tried. He's not budging." Tanner crossed his arms. "Look, we've got him dead to rights on multiple charges, but if he has information about his network, about who else is involved, we need it. And for some reason, he'll only talk to you. That's manipulation." "Probably, but it might also be leverage we can use." Tanner paused. "It's your call. No pressure." Evelyn thought about it. About Marsh in a cell, stripped of power, facing decades in prison. About the people he'd hurt, the lives he'd destroyed. About whether he deserved even 5 minutes of her time. "When?" she asked. "Tomorrow. Detention facility downtown. Will have guards present, recording everything. You'll be safe." "Fine. But I'm not making any promises." "Fair enough." Evelyn left the building through the back exit, avoiding the reporters still camped out front. The driver took her home in silence. When she got to her apartment, Amy was waiting inside with takeout and wine. "You looked good on TV," Amy said. "I looked terrified." "Same thing." Amy handed her a glass. "To you, for being brave when it mattered." They clinked glasses. Evelyn drank, tasting nothing. "What happens now?" Amy asked. "I visit a man who tried to have me killed. Then I figure out what to do with the rest of my life." "Sounds like a normal week," Evelyn laughed, surprising herself. "Yeah, normal." They ate dinner, watched mindless TV, and didn't talk about federal investigations or assassination attempts or anything heavier than whether the show's plotline made sense. It was exactly what Evelyn needed. At midnight, Amy left. Evelyn locked the door behind her, checked it twice, and went to bed. For the first time in a week, she slept through the night. The detention facility was a gray concrete block on the edge of downtown, surrounded by fences and guards, and the kind of security that made airports look casual. Evelyn showed her ID at 3 different checkpoints, walked through 2 metal detectors, and finally ended up in a small interview room with a table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner. Tanner sat with her. "He'll be here in a minute. Remember? You don't have to answer anything you don't want to. This is voluntary." "I know." The door opened. 2 guards escorted Marsh inside. He was wearing orange scrubs, his right hand still bandaged from where the sniper's bullet had destroyed his phone. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without the suit and the gun and the power. The guard sat him down across from Evelyn, then stepped back to the wall. Marsh met her eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said. Evelyn didn't respond. Marsh leaned back, studying her. "You're probably wondering why I asked for this." "Not really. I wanted to apologize." Evelyn almost laughed. "You tried to kill a senator. You threatened my friend. You held me at gunpoint. And now you want to apologize?" "Yes. Save it." "Ms. Carter." "No." Evelyn leaned forward. "You don't get to ask for forgiveness. You don't get to clear your conscience or feel better about yourself. You made choices. Now you live with them." Marsh's jaw tightened. "I know what I did." "Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you still think you're the victim. The guy who got caught, not the guy who was wrong." "I'm not a monster." "You're worse. You're a man who had every advantage, education, position, power, and you used it to hurt people for money." Evelyn's voice stayed level, cold. "Monsters don't know better. You did." Silence. Marsh looked down at his bandaged hand. "They're offering me a deal," he said quietly. 20 years if I give up my contacts. Full names, evidence, everything." "Good. Take it." "I will. But I wanted you to know—" He looked up. "The people I worked with, they're not going to stop. Even with me gone, they'll find someone else. Another prosecutor, another official, someone with access. And next time, they'll be more careful. Is that a threat? It's a warning. Marcia's eyes hardened. You think you won. You didn't. You just delayed the inevitable. Evelyn stood. We're done here. Wait. She walked to the door, knocked twice. A guard opened it. Miss Carter, Marsh called after her. They know your name now. They know what you can do. That makes you dangerous. And dangerous people don't live long. Evelyn stopped in the doorway, looked back. Let them try. She walked out, leaving Marsh alone in the interview room. Tanner caught up with her in the hallway. You okay? He asked. Yeah, he give you anything useful? Some names. We're verifying now. Tanner paused. For what it's worth, I think he was trying to rattle you. I know. Did it work? Evelyn thought about it. About the threat, the warning, the implication that this wasn't over. Part of her wanted to be scared, wanted to go back to being invisible, safe, unremarkable. But a bigger part, the part that had walked into a warehouse with a gun pointed at her, didn't care anymore. No, she said. It didn't. She left the facility, got in her car, and drove to Westbridge Medical Center. It was time to figure out what came next. Castellanos' office looked the same as before. Corner view, expensive furniture, the kind of space that announced power without having to say it. The chief of staff stood when Evelyn entered, gestured to a chair. Ms. Carter, good to see you. You too. They sat. Castellanos slid a folder across the desk. This is our offer, Director of Emergency Medical Services. You'd oversee all ER operations, trauma protocols, staff training. Salaries triple what you're making now, full benefits, and you'd have the authority to implement changes you see fit. Evelyn opened the folder, scanned the numbers. It was more money than she'd ever made in her life. Why? She asked. Because you're the best person for the job, and because after this week, every hospital in the country is going to try to hire you. I'd rather keep you here. What about Holloway? Terminated. License suspended pending full review. Castellanos' expression hardened. He's filing a lawsuit claiming wrongful termination. It won't go anywhere. And the other doctors? The ones who froze? Remedial training, probation, but no terminations unless they fail to improve. Castellanos leaned forward. Evelyn, I'm not interested in punishing people for one bad night. I'm interested in making sure it doesn't happen again. And that requires leadership. Your leadership. Evelyn looked at the folder, then at Castellanos. Can I think about it? You have 48 hours. After that, I need an answer. Evelyn stood, took the folder. I'll let you know. She left the office, walked through the hospital's hallways. People stared. Some smiled. A few applauded as she passed. It was surreal, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. She found Amy in the break room typing on her phone. Hey, Amy said, looking up. How'd it go with the chief? She offered me a promotion, Director of Emergency Medical Services. Amy's eyes went wide. Holy shit, that's huge. Yeah. Are you taking it? I don't know. Evelyn sat down, exhausted. A week ago, I wanted to be invisible. Now everyone wants me to lead. Maybe that's the point. What is? You spent years hiding. Maybe it's time to stop. Amy put down her phone. Look, I get it. Leadership is scary. People expect things from you. But you're good at this, Evelyn. Really good. And the hospital needs someone who actually gives a damn. What if I mess up? Then you fix it, like you always do. Amy smiled. Besides, you've already faced down a corrupt federal prosecutor. Hospital politics can't be harder than that. Evelyn almost laughed. You'd be surprised. They sat in comfortable silence. Outside the break room, the hospital continued its endless rhythm. Patients arriving, alarms sounding, staff rushing between crises. It was chaos and order, tragedy and hope, all tangled together. Evelyn had spent 7 years in this building, 7 years being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. And now, suddenly, she had a choice. Stay visible, take the power, use it, or walk away. Start over somewhere new, be nobody again. Her phone buzzed, a text from Voss. Marsh gave us 12 names. 3 are in custody already. You helped break open the biggest corruption case in a decade. Thought you should know. Evelyn stared at the message, then at Amy. I'm taking the job, she said. Amy grinned. Yeah? Yeah. Evelyn stood. But first, I need coffee. I'll get it. You just became my boss. Not yet, I didn't. Close enough. They walked to the cafeteria together, talking about nothing important. Normal conversation, normal day. Except everything had changed. And for the first time in 7 years, Evelyn wasn't running from it. She was walking straight in. 2 days later, Evelyn met Senator Klein in his hospital room. Private suite, top floor. Enough security to make the Secret Service jealous. He was sitting up, looking pale but alive, his son standing beside him. Ms. Carter, the senator said, his voice still weak. Thank you for coming. How are you feeling? Evelyn asked. Like I got hit by a truck, but alive thanks to you. Klein gestured to a chair. Please, sit. Evelyn sat. The senator's son, Robert, hovered nearby, protective. I won't keep you long, Klein said, but I needed to say this in person. You saved my life, not just medically, but by exposing Marsh's network. The investigation I was leading, it's going to continue now. Because of you. I was just doing my job. No, you went far beyond that. Klein reached for a folder on the bedside table, winced. Robert handed it to him. I've been in politics 30 years, seen a lot of people claim to care about justice. Most are lying. But you, he opened the folder. You risked everything, asked for nothing in return. That's rare. Senator, let me finish. Klein pulled out a document. This is a letter to the director of the FBI recommending you for a civilian advisory position on anti-corruption task forces, if you're interested. Evelyn stared. I'm a nurse. You're a nurse who caught a federal prosecutor. I think you're qualified. Klein smiled faintly. It's not an order, just an opportunity, if you want it. Evelyn took the letter, read it. The position was part-time, consulting basis, working with federal teams on medical-related corruption cases. Good pay, real impact, another choice, another path forward. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Klein leaned back against his pillows, exhausted. Whatever you decide, know that I'm grateful. And if you ever need anything, anything at all, you call me. Evelyn left the hospital with the letter in her bag and too many thoughts in her head. Opportunities were piling up faster than she could process them. Director at Westbridge. Federal consultant. Media interviews she kept declining. Job offers from hospitals across the country. It was overwhelming and terrifying, and maybe exactly what she needed. That night, alone in her apartment, Evelyn made her decision. She called Castellanos first, accepted the director position. Then she emailed Senator Klein, accepting the advisory role. Then she texted Voss, asking for more information about the Tactical Medical Division. 3 jobs. 3 ways to use what she'd learned, who she'd become. It was too much. Probably. But she'd figure it out. She always did. Her phone rang one last time before she went to bed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Ms. Carter? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is Dr. Sarah Park. I'm the new chief of surgery at Westbridge. We haven't met yet, but I wanted to introduce myself before your first day as director. Okay. I also wanted to give you a heads up. Park's voice lowered. There's been some pushback about your appointment. Some of the senior staff don't think a nurse should be running the ER. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Of course they don't. I'm telling you because I want you to be prepared. They're going to test you, push boundaries, try to prove you don't belong. Let them try. Park laughed. Good answer. I think we're going to get along fine. She paused. One more thing. Dr. Holloway's lawsuit? It's bigger than we thought. He's not just suing for wrongful termination. He's claiming you deliberately sabotaged him to steal his position. Evelyn closed her eyes. You're kidding. I wish I was. His lawyers filed yesterday. It's going to be messy. How messy? Depositions, testimony, probably a trial. Mo Parkside. Welcome to hospital administration. It's worse than the ER. They talked for another 10 minutes, Park briefing her on the politics and personalities she'd be navigating. When they hung up, Evelyn sat in the dark, processing. Holloway wasn't done. He was going to fight, try to drag her down with him. Part of her wanted to be surprised, but she wasn't. Because people like Holloway, people who'd built their careers on being seen, being important, didn't go quietly. They went kicking and screaming, and they took everyone they could with them. Evelyn's phone lit up with one final notification. An email from Holloway's lawyer demanding a meeting to discuss settlement terms. She deleted it without reading the details, because she'd made her choice. She was done hiding, done apologizing, done letting other people decide what she was worth. Whatever came next, lawsuits, threats, people trying to prove she didn't belong, she'd handle it the same way she'd handled everything else, by showing up and refusing to back down. She turned off the lights, climbed into bed, and tried to sleep. Outside her window, the city hummed with life, millions of people living, working, fighting their own battles. And somewhere in that sprawling darkness, someone was already planning their next move. Because Marsh had been right about one thing. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. The lawsuit arrived on Evelyn's desk 3 weeks into her new position as Director of Emergency Medical Services. A thick envelope, legal letterhead, the kind of document designed to intimidate before you even opened it. She read it standing up in her new office. Corner space, windows overlooking the city, the kind of room she'd walked past 1,000 times without imagining she'd ever occupy it. Holloway's complaint ran 47 pages. Wrongful termination, defamation, conspiracy to damage his reputation. He was demanding reinstatement, back pay, and $5 million in damages. The last paragraph made her pause. Dr. Marcus Holloway's distinguished career has been destroyed by Ms. Carter's reckless actions and deliberate manipulation of facts. She used her military background to intimidate hospital staff and federal agents, creating a false narrative that portrayed Dr. Holloway as incompetent, when in fact he was following proper medical protocol. This lawsuit seeks to restore his reputation and hold Ms. Carter accountable for the harm she has caused. Evelyn set the document down, looked out the window at the city below. Cars moved through intersections. People walked to work. Life continued, oblivious to the fact that a man who'd nearly killed a senator through his own paralysis was now trying to destroy the person who'd saved the patient's life. Her office phone rang. Castellanos. "You've seen it," the chief of staff said without preamble. "Just finished reading. Legal says it's garbage. No merit, won't survive summary judgment." Castellanos paused. "But it'll be public, messy. They're going to drag you through depositions, question every decision you made that night. Let them." "Evelyn, this could take months, maybe years. You sure you want to fight it? What's the alternative? Settle? Admit I did something wrong?" "No, but you could let the hospital handle it. Our lawyers. Our problem." Evelyn thought about that, about letting other people fight her battles while she focused on work. It was tempting, safe. But safety was what had kept her invisible for 7 years. "I'll handle it," Evelyn said, "but I need the hospital's support, full access to records, witness statements, everything. You'll have it. And Evelyn?" Castellanos' voice softened. "Don't let him get in your head. Holloway's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things." "I know." She hung up and stared at the lawsuit. 47 pages of accusations, half-truths, and outright lies. It would have hurt more if it wasn't so transparent. Holloway wasn't fighting for justice. He was fighting to avoid humiliation. The difference mattered. Her first deposition was scheduled 4 weeks later in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Holloway's lawyers, 2 men in expensive suits who looked like they'd stepped out of a corporate recruitment poster, sat across from Evelyn and Westbridge's legal team. A court reporter typed silently in the corner. Lead counsel was a man named Richard Brennan, mid-50s, silver hair, the kind of confidence that came from winning cases through attrition rather than merit. "Ms. Carter," Brennan began, voice smooth. "Let's start with the night in question. When you arrived at Trauma Bay 3, what was your role?" "ER nurse. I was assisting with patient care." "Assisting, not leading." "Correct. Yet you took charge of the code. You gave orders. You administered medication without physician approval. Brennan leaned forward. Would you say that's within the scope of a nurse's duties? I'd say it's within the scope of saving a life. That's not what I asked. Evelyn met his eyes, then rephrased the question. Brennan smiled, thin and cold. Did you or did you not violate hospital protocol by administering atropine without Dr. Holloway's explicit authorization? I administered atropine because the patient was dying and Dr. Holloway was frozen. Frozen. That's a strong word. It's an accurate word. Or is it possible, Ms. Carter, that in your eagerness to prove yourself, perhaps to validate your military experience, you misread the situation? That doctor. Holloway was in fact assessing the patient's condition while you rushed to heroics? Evelyn's lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Nguyen, cut in. Objection. Argumentative. I'll rephrase. Brennan pulled out a document. According to hospital records, the code lasted 4 minutes and 32 seconds. In that time, Dr. Holloway called for defibrillation twice, ordered compressions, and requested a full cardiac panel. Does that sound like a frozen man to you? He called for things. He didn't do them because he was directing the team. That's what attending physicians do. He was hesitating. There's a difference. Brennan made a note. Let's talk about your military service. You were discharged for PTSD, correct? Nguyen stood. Relevance? Ms. Carter's mental state is directly relevant to her judgment that night. Her medical history is protected. Not when she's claiming her military experience qualifies her to override a licensed physician. Brennan turned back to Evelyn. Isn't it true that you left the military after a psychological breakdown following a combat incident? Evelyn's hands curled into fists under the table. I was medically discharged after sustained exposure to combat trauma. The term breakdown is inaccurate and offensive. But you do suffer from PTSD. Suffered, past tense. Are you currently on medication? Nguyen slammed her palm on the table. That's enough, Ms. Carter's medical records are confidential and have no bearing on this case. They do if her condition affected her judgment. Unless you have evidence linking her medical history to her actions that night, this line of questioning is over. Brennan smiled. We're just getting started. The deposition lasted 6 hours. They went over every second of that night. Who said what? Who moved when? Every decision Evelyn made dissected and questioned. Brennan tried to paint her as reckless, attention-seeking, someone who'd used a crisis to grab power. By the time they finished, Evelyn's jaw ached from clenching it. Outside the conference room, Nguyen pulled her aside. You did good. Stayed calm. Didn't take the bait. He's going to bring up the PTSD again, at trial. Let him. We'll have expert witnesses explaining that PTSD doesn't impair clinical judgment. Plus, your actions that night speak for themselves. The patient lived. Holloway's going to argue I got lucky. Then we show the jury your training, your experience, the pattern recognition that let you diagnose organophosphate poisoning before the labs came back. Nguyen squeezed her shoulder. Trust me. We've got this. Evelyn wanted to believe her, but belief was harder than action. The trial started 3 months later on a gray morning that matched Evelyn's mood. The courthouse was downtown, all marble and wood paneling, the kind of place where justice was supposed to be blind, but rarely felt that way. Holloway sat at the plaintiff's table, looking dignified and wounded, the perfect victim. His lawyers had dressed him well, coached him on how to project humility mixed with righteous anger. He didn't look at Evelyn when she entered. The jury selection took 2 days. 12 people who'd probably never set foot in an ER, who had no idea what it felt like to make life or death decisions in seconds, but they'd decide who was right, who deserved vindication. Brennan's opening statement was a masterpiece of manipulation. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about power, about a woman who used her military background to bully and intimidate her way into a position she didn't earn. Dr. Marcus Holloway dedicated his life to medicine. He saved hundreds of lives, built a reputation on skill, compassion, and expertise. And in one night, Ms. Carter destroyed it. Not because he did anything wrong, but because she wanted to be the hero. He walked the jury through his version of events. Holloway calmly directing the code, while Evelyn shoved people aside, grabbed control, made reckless decisions that happened to work out. He called it luck, called her actions dangerous, suggested that if the patient had died, she'd be facing criminal charges. This isn't about whether Senator Klein survived, Brennan concluded. It's about whether we let people abuse power just because the outcome was favorable. Dr. Holloway deserves justice, and Ms. Carter needs to be held accountable. Nguyen's opening was different, quieter, more precise. The plaintiff wants you to believe this is about power, she said, standing directly in front of the jury box. But it's not. It's about competence, about recognizing when someone is in over their head and having the courage to step in. Yes, Ms. Carter took charge that night, because Dr. Holloway couldn't. The evidence will show that he froze, not out of malice, but out of fear. And if Ms. Carter hadn't acted, Senator Klein would be dead. She let that hang. You're going to hear testimony from federal agents who witnessed Dr. Holloway try to have Ms. Carter removed from the trauma bay, from nurses who saw him hesitate, from medical experts who will explain that her diagnosis and treatment were not only correct, but brilliant. And at the end of this trial, you'll understand one simple truth. Ms. Carter didn't destroy Dr. Holloway's reputation. He destroyed it himself by being unwilling to admit he made a mistake. The first witness was Torres, the resident who'd been in the trauma bay that night. Brennan walked him through his version of events, trying to establish that Holloway had been in control. Dr. Holloway was directing the code, wasn't he? Brennan asked. He was trying to, Torres said carefully. Trying to, or succeeding? Torres hesitated. He gave some orders. And did the team follow them? Some of them. But when Ms. Carter started giving orders, the team followed her. Why is that? Because she sounded more confident. Brennan pounced. So this was about confidence, not competence. I didn't say that. But you implied it. Ms. Carter was louder, more forceful, and the team responded to that authority rather than Dr. Holloway's actual medical expertise. Torres looked miserable. That's not what I meant. On cross-examination, Nguyen was gentle but effective. Dr. Torres, you were standing next to Dr. Holloway when the patient flatlined. What did he do? He called for the crash cart. Did he move toward the patient? No. Did he start compressions? No. What did Ms. Carter do? Torres's voice strengthened. She started compressions immediately, didn't wait for the cart, just went. And in your medical opinion, was that the correct response? Yes. Every second counts during a code. Thank you. The trial continued for 2 weeks. Expert witnesses testified about protocol, about the pharmacology of organophosphate poisoning, about the standard of care. Holloway took the stand and performed well, apologetic about the confusion that night, insistent that he'd been following proper procedure, wounded by what he characterized as a personal attack. I don't blame Ms. Carter for acting, he said, voice heavy with manufactured pain. She's a skilled nurse, but she overstepped. And instead of acknowledging that, she's tried to paint me as incompetent. That's what hurts most. Not the job loss, but the character assassination. Nguyen's cross was surgical. Dr. Holloway, when Senator Klein flatlined, how long did it take you to begin resuscitation efforts? I was assessing the situation. How long? A few seconds. According to multiple witnesses, it was closer to 15 seconds. Why did you wait? I was ensuring we had the right equipment. During a code, is 15 seconds an acceptable delay? Holloway's composure cracked slightly. In context, yes. What context? I was managing multiple variables. Were you scared? Silence. Holloway stared at her. Were you scared, Dr. Holloway? Afraid of making a mistake with cameras watching, with a senator's life on the line? Every doctor experiences pressure. That's not what I asked. Nguyen moved closer. Isn't it true that you froze because you were more worried about your reputation than the patient's life? No. Then why did you try to have Ms. Carter removed from the trauma bay after she stabilized the patient? Because she violated protocol, or because she made you look bad? Nguyen let the question sit. Because she did what you couldn't, and rather than thanking her, you tried to punish her. Holloway's face flushed. That's a gross mischaracterization. Is it? You called security. You filed complaints. You've now filed this lawsuit, all because a nurse saved a life you failed to save. I didn't fail. The patient was dead, flatlined, and you stood there. Nguyen's voice cut like glass. Ms. Carter brought him back. That's not character assassination, Dr. Holloway. That's just facts. She sat down. Holloway looked at the jury, trying to recover, but the damage was visible. When Evelyn took the stand, Brennan tried to rattle her with questions about her past, her PTSD, her motivations. But Evelyn had spent 7 years learning to control her reactions. She answered calmly, precisely, never defensive. Why did you take over the code? Brennan asked. Because the patient was dying and no one else was moving fast enough. Did it occur to you that Dr. Holloway might have had a plan? If he did, he wasn't executing it. So you decided you knew better. I decided someone had to act. That's very heroic. It wasn't about being a hero. It was about not letting someone die when I could prevent it. Brennan changed tactics. You've been offered several positions since that night. Director at Westbridge, federal consultant, media opportunities. Hasn't this worked out quite well for you? Evelyn met his eyes. Are you asking if I'm glad the senator survived? Yes. Am I glad it led to opportunities? I'm grateful. But I didn't save his life for a promotion. I saved it because that's what I was trained to do. Trained as a combat medic in war zones with enemy combatants. Brennan's voice took on an edge. Isn't it possible you brought that aggressive military mindset into a civilian hospital and created conflict where none needed to exist? Evelyn leaned forward. I brought competence. I brought experience. I brought the ability to recognize a crisis and respond without hesitation. If that's aggressive, then yes, I'm guilty. The courtroom was silent. No further questions, Brennan said. Closing arguments came on a Friday afternoon. Brennan gave another polished performance about accountability and respecting hierarchy. Nguyen kept it simple. Dr. Holloway wants you to believe he was wronged, but the evidence shows he failed his patient, failed his team, and now he's failing to take responsibility. Ms. Carter did her job. She saved a life, and for that, she's being punished by a man who can't admit he wasn't good enough when it mattered most. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Evelyn sat in the hallway outside the courtroom with Nguyen, Amy, and Voss, who'd taken time off to be there. Nobody talked much. There wasn't much to say. When the bailiff called them back, Evelyn's hands were steady. Whatever happened, she'd told the truth. That had to count for something. The jury foreman stood. In the matter of Holloway versus Carter and Westbridge Medical Center, we find in favor of the defendants. The words washed over Evelyn like a wave. Not just a victory, a complete one. The jury had rejected every claim, every accusation. Holloway sat frozen at his table, face pale. Furthermore, the foreman continued, we find the plaintiff's claims to be frivolous and recommend sanctions for filing a baseless lawsuit designed to harass the defendant. Brennan was already packing his briefcase. Holloway stood, looked once at Evelyn, and walked out without a word. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Evelyn gave a brief statement, grateful for the jury's decision, ready to move forward, no hard feelings toward Holloway personally. The lies came easier than they should have. That night, Westbridge threw a small celebration in the hospital's executive conference room. Nothing fancy, just staff who'd supported her, testified for her, believed in her. Castellanos gave a short speech about vindication and values. Dr. Lindholm hugged her. Torres apologized for his testimony, though Evelyn told him he'd done fine. Amy pulled her aside near the end. How do you feel? Tired. That's it? Evelyn thought about it. Relieved, validated, a little angry it had to go this far. Holloway's done. His license is under review. The lawsuit tanked what was left of his reputation. Amy smiled. You won. I survived. The same thing. Maybe, but Evelyn had learned that survival and victory weren't always the same. You could win battles and still carry scars. The real work started the next week when Evelyn implemented her first major change as director. Mandatory simulation training for all ER staff, focusing on high-pressure codes and crisis decision-making. Some doctors grumbled. Most understood. She also started weekly meetings with the nursing staff, asking what they needed, what wasn't working, what changes would actually help. Novel concept, listening to the people doing the work. 6 months into her tenure, Westbridge's ER wait times dropped by 30%. Patient satisfaction scores climbed. Staff retention improved. The changes weren't revolutionary. They were just common sense applied by someone who actually cared. The federal consulting work took Evelyn to different cities, different cases. She helped investigate a medical supply company falsifying inspection records, testified in a fraud case involving kickbacks from pharmaceutical reps, used her pattern recognition to spot inconsistencies that lawyers and accountants missed. It was satisfying work, different from the ER's immediate urgency, but important. On a cold morning in January, almost a year after the assassination attempt, Evelyn got a call from Senator Klein himself. "Miss Carter, I hope I'm not interrupting." "Senator, how are you?" "Fully recovered, thanks to you. I'm actually calling because I wanted you to know the corruption investigation went to trial last week. 3 more convictions, including Marsh's handler. We dismantled the entire network. That's good news. It wouldn't have happened without you." Klein paused. "I also wanted to tell you that I'm retiring. End of this term. The poisoning. It made me reassess priorities, spend more time with family." "I understand. Before I go, though, I'm proposing legislation, medical whistleblower protections, expanded authority for nurses in emergency situations, funding for combat medic transition programs." His voice warmed. "I'm calling it the Carter Act." Evelyn stopped walking. She was in the hospital parking garage, halfway to her car. "You can't do that." "Already did. Co-sponsors from both parties. It'll pass." "Senator, you saved my life, Evelyn. Let me honor that, please." She wanted to argue, but the sincerity in his voice stopped her. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you. No. Thank you." After they hung up, Evelyn stood in the parking garage, staring at nothing. A year ago, she'd been invisible. Now legislation would carry her name. It was surreal, overwhelming, and maybe exactly what needed to happen so other people like her, people with skills and experience who'd been overlooked, might have a better shot. That evening, she met Voss for dinner at a quiet restaurant downtown. They talked about work, about cases, about the mundane details of their lives. When the check came, Voss leaned back. "You ever think about coming back full-time, tactical medical division?" "I've thought about it." "And?" "I like where I am, making changes at Westbridge, consulting on cases. It feels right." Voss nodded. "Fair enough, but if you change your mind, the offer stands." "I know, and I appreciate it." They stood to leave. Outside, snow was starting to fall, light flakes drifting through streetlight halos. "Can I ask you something?" Evelyn said. "That night at the warehouse, when Marsh had the gun, were you scared?" Voss considered the question. "Terrified, but I trusted you'd figure it out." "Why?" "Because you always do." Voss smiled. "That's your superpower, Evelyn. You don't panic. You just solve the problem in front of you." They parted ways at the corner. Evelyn walked back to her car, boots crunching on fresh snow. The city was quiet tonight, peaceful. Her phone buzzed. A text from Amy. "Drinks tomorrow? I need advice about this attending who keeps hitting on me." Evelyn smiled. "Sure, 7 p.m.? Perfect. You're the best. Normal problems, normal friendship, normal life." It had taken a year, but she'd finally built something that felt sustainable. Not perfect, not easy, but real. The next morning, Evelyn arrived at Westbridge before sunrise. Her office was dark except for the glow of her computer screen. She had budgets to review, schedules to approve, a dozen small decisions that kept the ER running. Halfway through her second coffee, someone knocked. Dr. Sarah Park, the chief of surgery. "Morning," Park said. "Got a minute?" "Sure." Park sat down looking uncomfortable. "We have a situation. New trauma attending started last week. Dr. James Whitmore came from a program in Boston. Brilliant surgeon, excellent credentials. I sense a but coming. He's been dismissive toward nursing staff, interrupted procedures to give orders that contradict the nurse's judgment. Yesterday, he told one of our best ICU nurses she should stick to tasks within her competence. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Has anyone talked to him? I did. He apologized, said he didn't mean anything by it, promised to be more collaborative. Park met her eyes. But I think he needs to hear it from you, someone who's been where the nurses are. You want me to handle it. I want you to make sure he understands that this hospital doesn't tolerate that behavior, from anyone. Evelyn nodded slowly. Send him to my office this afternoon. Dr. Whitmore arrived at 2 p.m. looking confident and slightly annoyed at being summoned. He was young, early 30s, athletic build, the kind of swagger that came from never being told no. Dr. Whitmore, Evelyn said, gesturing to a chair. Thanks for coming. No problem, though I'm not sure what this is about. Your interactions with nursing staff. Whitmore's smile tightened. I already spoke to Dr. Park about that. It was a misunderstanding. Was it? Evelyn pulled up incident reports on her computer. Because I have 3 separate complaints from nurses saying you've overridden their clinical judgment, dismissed their concerns, and made them feel incompetent. I'm a surgeon. I give orders. That's how it works. Not here it doesn't. Evelyn leaned forward. At Westbridge, we work as a team. Nurses aren't your assistants. They're professionals with expertise you should respect. Whitmore laughed, short, dismissive. With all due respect, Ms. Carter, I didn't come here to be lectured by a nurse about how to practice medicine. The room went very quiet. Let me be clear, Evelyn said, her voice level but cold. I'm not just a nurse. I'm the director of emergency medical services. I set policy for this department. And my policy is simple. Treat people with respect or find another job. You can't fire me for giving medical orders. No. But I can fire you for creating a hostile work environment, for undermining team cohesion, for being an arrogant ass who thinks his degree makes him better than everyone else. Evelyn stood. I've seen your type before. Brilliant, talented, completely unable to function in a team. And you know what happens to people like that? They make mistakes. Because they're so busy proving they're the smartest person in the room, they miss the nurse trying to tell them the IV's infiltrated or the patient's pressure is dropping. Whitmore's face flushed. I don't make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. The difference is whether you're willing to listen when someone catches them. They stared at each other. Finally, Whitmore looked away. What do you want from me? He asked. I want you to apologize to the nurses you disrespected. I want you to attend team training sessions on collaborative care, and I want you to understand that if I get one more complaint, you're done here. Evelyn sat back down. You're a good surgeon. I've seen your stats. But this hospital needs good people, not just good credentials. Figure out which one you want to be. Whitmore left without another word. Evelyn didn't know if he'd change. Some people did. Some doubled down on their worst traits. Either way, she'd made her position clear. That night, alone in her apartment, Evelyn opened her laptop and stared at a blank document. She'd been thinking about writing something, not a memoir, but a guide. Lessons from her years in combat medicine and emergency care. Things she wished someone had told her when she was starting out. She titled it, When Protocol Isn't Enough, A Field Guide to Crisis Medicine. The first sentence came slowly. The hardest part of saving lives isn't the medical knowledge. It's having the courage to act when everyone else is frozen. She wrote for 3 hours, the words flowing easier than expected. About pattern recognition, about trusting your instincts, about the difference between following rules and doing what's right, about being overlooked and learning to step forward anyway. When she finally stopped, she had 15 pages. Raw, unpolished, but real. She saved the document and closed the laptop, feeling something shift inside her. A sense that maybe her experiences, her struggles, could help someone else navigate their own. The weeks blurred together. Work, consulting cases, occasional dinners with Amy or Voss. Evelyn's life had found a rhythm that felt sustainable. Then one afternoon, she got a call from an unknown number. Ms. Carter, this is Dr. Rebecca Chen from Harbor General in Seattle. I hope you don't mind. Senator Klein gave me your number. Okay? I'm the chief medical officer here, and we're restructuring our emergency services. I've been following your work at Westbridge, and I'm impressed. Chen paused. We'd like to fly you out. Consulting basis, help us design a new trauma protocol that centers nursing expertise alongside physician oversight. I'm already pretty busy. 2 weeks. Full accommodations, generous compensation, and a chance to influence how a major metropolitan hospital approaches emergency care. Chen's voice warmed. Plus, Seattle in spring is beautiful. You should see it. Evelyn almost said no. But something in Chen's tone, genuine respect, real interest, made her hesitate. Send me the details, Evelyn said. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. The project would mean travel, time away from Westbridge, stepping even further into the spotlight she'd spent years avoiding. But it would also mean spreading the lessons she'd learned, helping build systems that valued everyone's contribution. She called Castellanos to discuss logistics. The chief of staff was enthusiastic. Do it. This is exactly the kind of thought leadership we want associated with Westbridge. Plus, it's good for your career. I'm not worried about my career. Then do it because it's the right thing. Castellanos paused. You've spent a year proving you belong in this role, Evelyn. Now prove you can influence the entire field. Evelyn agreed. The Seattle trip was scheduled for April. Before that, though, she had one more thing to handle. She'd been putting it off, but it was time. She drove to the cemetery on a Saturday morning, early enough that the grounds were empty except for maintenance workers. Her parents' graves were in the east section, matching headstones under an oak tree. She hadn't visited in 3 years, partly because she'd been busy, mostly because she hadn't known what to say. Now standing in front of the stones, words came easier. Hey, she said quietly. Sorry it's been a while. Things got complicated. She told them about the senator, about Marsh, about the trial, about becoming director and consulting for the feds and all the ways her life had changed. I know you would have worried, she continued. Mom, especially. You always said I took too many risks, and you were right. But I'm okay. More than okay, actually. The wind moved through the oak leaves, making them whisper. I wish you could see this, see what I've built. You'd be proud, I think. Or maybe you'd tell me to slow down, take a vacation. She smiled. Probably both. She stayed another 10 minutes, just being present. When she left, she felt lighter. The Seattle trip happened in late April. Harbor General was massive, 3 times the size of Westbridge, sprawling campus, state-of-the-art facilities. Dr. Rebecca Chen met her at the entrance, energetic and sharp-eyed. Ms. Carter, welcome. Call me Evelyn. Evelyn, let me show you around. They spent 2 weeks redesigning Harbor General's trauma protocols from the ground up. Evelyn brought in nurses from every shift, asked what wasn't working, what they needed. She sat in on codes, observed handoffs, identified bottlenecks. Then she built something better. New communication protocols that elevated nursing input. Decision trees that empowered the most experienced person in the room to lead, regardless of title. Training simulations that forced doctors and nurses to work as equals. By the end, Harbor General's ER staff was energized in a way Chen said she hadn't seen in years. You have a gift, Chen said on Evelyn's last day. Not just medical knowledge. You make people feel valued. That's rare. I just listen, Em. No, you listen and you act. That's the difference. Flying home, Evelyn stared out the window at clouds and thought about how strange her life had become. A year and a half ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was consulting for major hospitals, influencing policy, being treated as an expert. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Back at Westbridge, she found a package on her desk. Inside was a framed copy of the Carter Act signed by Senator Klein and dozens of co-sponsors. A note was attached. Thank you for showing us what courage looks like. This is just the beginning. David Klein. Evelyn hung it on her office wall, next to her Medal of Valor. Reminders of what she'd survived, what she'd built, who she'd become. That evening, she met Amy for drinks at their usual place. Her friend looked excited. Okay, don't freak out, Amy said, but I applied for a nurse practitioner program, and I got in. Evelyn grinned. That's amazing. You inspired me. Watching you fight for recognition, for authority, it made me realize I've been selling myself short. Amy raised her glass. So, thank you for being brave enough to show the rest of us we can be too. They clinked glasses. Evelyn felt something warm settle in her chest. Not pride exactly, more like purpose. Because this was the real victory. Not the medals or the promotions or the legislation, but the ripple effect. The people she'd inspired to step forward, to claim their space, to stop accepting invisibility. 6 months later, Evelyn was invited to speak at a national nursing conference in Chicago. 2,000 attendees, packed auditorium, the kind of crowd that should have terrified her. Instead, she felt calm. She told her story, all of it. The deployment, the PTSD, the years of being overlooked, the night with Senator Klein, the trial, the changes she'd made at Westbridge. But mostly she talked about what she'd learned. For 7 years I thought staying invisible was safer, she said, gripping the podium. I thought if I kept my head down, didn't make waves, I could avoid getting hurt again. And maybe I did avoid some pain. But I also avoided living, avoided using my skills, avoided making the difference I was trained to make. She paused, looking out at the audience. So here's what I want you to take away. Your voice matters. Your experience matters. And when you see something wrong, when you see someone in danger or a system failing or a leader who won't lead, you have the right to step forward, not because you're trying to be a hero, but because someone has to, and it might as well be you. The applause started slow, then built until the entire auditorium was standing. Evelyn stood at that podium, looking out at thousands of nurses who'd spent careers being dismissed, overlooked, treated as less than. And she saw herself in every face, people who deserved better, who were capable of more, who just needed permission to stop apologizing for their competence. After the speech, a line formed, people wanting to shake her hand, share their stories, ask advice. She stayed for 2 hours, talking to as many as she could. One woman, older with tired eyes, gripped Evelyn's hand. I've been a nurse 40 years, she said, and I've never felt like I mattered until now. Thank you for fighting, for all of us. Evelyn hugged her, blinking back tears. Flying home that night, exhausted but content, Evelyn thought about the journey. From invisible to recognized, from silent to heard, from someone who took orders to someone who gave them. It hadn't been smooth, hadn't been easy. She'd been threatened, sued, questioned at every turn. But she'd survived. And more than that, she'd won. Not in the flashy, cinematic way, but in the way that actually mattered. By changing systems, inspiring people, proving that competence mattered more than credentials. Her phone buzzed. A text from Voss. Saw your speech online. Damn good. Proud of you. Evelyn smiled and typed back, Thanks. Couldn't have done it without you. Another text, this time from Senator Klein. The Carter Act passed the Senate today. Presidential signature expected next week. You changed the world, Evelyn. She stared at the message for a long time. Change the world felt too big, too grand. But maybe that's how change happened. Not in single dramatic moments, but in 1,000 small ones. A nurse stepping forward during a code. A director redesigning protocols. A speaker telling her story so others felt brave enough to tell theirs. Small moments. Building on each other. Until suddenly, things were different. Evelyn landed in her city just after midnight, drove home through empty streets, climbed the stairs to her apartment. Inside, everything was the same as always. Small, simple, hers. She made tea, sat by the window, and watched the city sleep. Tomorrow, she'd go back to work, handle crises, make decisions, fight battles big and small. There would be people who resented her authority, who questioned her qualifications, who tried to push her back into invisibility. Let them try. Because Evelyn Carter had spent 7 years being nobody, and she was never going back. She'd found her voice, her power, her place, and she was done apologizing for any of it. The city lights glittered below, each one a life, a story, a person fighting their own battles in the dark. Evelyn raised her tea in a silent toast. To the overlooked, the dismissed, the people doing the work while others took credit. To the ones who stepped forward when everyone else froze. To the quiet strength that changed everything. She drank, set down the cup, and smiled. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. You don't need permission to be powerful. You just need the courage to stop waiting for someone else to notice you're already there. And once you stop waiting, once you step into your own light, the whole world shifts to make room. Evelyn stood, stretched, and walked to her bedroom. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fights, new chances to prove herself. But tonight she rested. A woman who'd saved a senator, exposed corruption, changed legislation, and inspired thousands. A woman who'd been invisible, and now would never be overlooked again.